We welcome everyone to our council session today, September 23rd at noon. And we'll begin with the roll call, starting with the council.
Craig Christensen,
Teresa Kay.
Gary Garrett,
Travis Hoban.
Becky Bogdan.
George Hanlon. And I know Councillor Whipple will join us shortly. She is in a court case. It's proposed that we approve the following meeting minutes that were included in our packet: August 19th council meeting and the September 9th work meeting. Are there any objections or requested changes to these minutes? All right. If not, I declare the minutes approved by unanimous consent. First, we have a presentation regarding UDOT University Avenue Bridge construction. And that will be presented by Andy Spencer, the UDOT project manager.
I believe there was we lost presenting. Do we speak from the podium up there? Okay. Yeah, we saw this mic here and we just weren't sure.
If there's someone back here who wanted to add.
Okay.
So welcome. We appreciate you being here.
Okay. Sounds great. You'll be able to see
So
it. I assume this advances our slides.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
No, I'm Wyatt Woolley. I'm the communications manager for
Okay.
UDOT.
Great,
Region
thank
3,
you.
Which is Utah County all the way out to Vernal. And I have a lot of history with this bridge myself. I went to BYU in the early 2000s. And I'm very familiar with this bridge, and I gotta say, I'm so glad this is coming. Does anyone know how old the bridge is?
60 years.
It's 60 years. That's right.
I was
60 years
surprised
this
to
year.
learn that. Yeah.
Which is pretty amazing. In 2021, our structures team came and looked at the bridge. We did some repairs at that time and they realized it's time. It's reached the end of its life and it's time to replace the bridge completely. So let's get into our schedule. Next slide. So we did our study, we did planning design for a couple of years, and now we're right here on contractor is on board. We do have a contractor on board and they're scheduled to start next week. October. And so you might see some stuff going on out there. There's a few other sections they gotta take care of near the freeway, but you might see some signage and stuff starting. We probably won't see some real stuff happening until the end of October, but they will be working. And if you notice on construction fall 2025, at the bottom it says we anticipate to end 2027. So 2 years it's gonna take to replace this bridge. So let's go to the next slide, how we're gonna do it. We're gonna start with the west side. Take that down, build it up, then move to the east side. Take that down, build it up. As you can see, we're gonna have a lane open in each direction while we do it. So technically, it will be opened. We do not recommend you go through it though. You're gonna develop some traffic issues if you do probably. So we have a slide about that with alternative routes and things like that, but we do hope that people try to avoid going over the bridge. We do not want people walking across the bridge. I know we got a little lady here for reference, but don't try to walk across it. We don't want you to do that. I don't recommend trying to ride your bike across it while it's in a work zone. So this is what it currently looks like today, looking south and looking north, going over the tracks. And this is what the new bridge will look like. As you can see, this will no longer on the west side where they're building that parking structure. You won't be able to drive over there anymore, but you will be able to walk. We have 8-foot wide sidewalks, so you can now walk hand in hand with someone across that bridge. You got 6-foot lanes for bikes, 2 full lanes on each side, all the way over. So it's a vast improvement to what it is today. This is what it looks like from the side, east side and west side.
Wyatt, can I just make one comment on the previous slide?
Yep.
Actually back one more. So as long as I've heard about the impending reconstruction of this bridge, I always assumed it would be 3 lanes in each direction to match the south section and then north to 300 south. I was kind of surprised. I guess we had to kind of pick, right? We could have a bike lane and an expanded sidewalk. And there's just not that much space. But traffic patterns, traffic studies that you did showed that we could continue for the coming decades with just 2 lanes.
Yes. In order for us to expand the bridge more, would ask us to take a lot of right of way.
I'm just gonna go to the next slide because you can see it.
Yeah,
And that would have drastically affected the funding and this project.
yeah,
And,
okay.
and it would have a substantial effect on your existing businesses and the
Mhm.
existing homes, et cetera, each side of the bridge. And so, yeah, it's certainly something that was contemplated, but the effects of going wider were far reaching.
Well, it's nice we'll get a bike lane.
That was one thing we are strongly implementing at UDOT. We call it all users. So however you want to go, whether you want to walk, bike, take transit, or drive your car. We want every new project, we implement that with all of them. We always want to have a trail, a bike lane, a walking path, something incorporated with it. So we did that with this project as well. And this is what it's going to look like from the side. The MSC walls, which stands for mechanically stabilized earth, you'll see that it's flat, it's straight. And so you won't be able to go underneath anymore. You won't be able to park underneath anymore. No one can camp under there anymore. None of that stuff. That's done. You'll notice that there's only 2 pillars now, so the sections are they longer or shorter? But there's less of them.
Well, there's vastly less. So right now, you've got about 14 individual bridges, right, as you go up and over. And so when we're all said and done, you'll just have 3 bridge sections. And basically, if you want to think of it, it's going to be, you know, one for the UTA tracks and that little kind of connector road that's on the south side. I guess you could call it 700 South. I don't know exactly what we call it. We'll call it 700 South. Then you've got the main body of the tracks, and you've got 600 South. And that's all the openings that will be under there. Otherwise, it will be filled in like many of the other overpasses that you see. So it will be drastically different in that way.
And all the light posts and fencing, that's all actually you guys. This is your betterment from Provo that you requested and that you were putting on.
Yeah,
Which would make it look a lot nicer,
it'll look very
a lot brighter, a lot safer for everyone.
And you'll notice that it's 10 foot where you get right over the tracks and where it starts to get really high, and it's about 6 foot right here. So, you know, going over the bridge, both as a motorist and a pedestrian, we tend to focus on the pedestrians and bikes, but your experience as a motorist, you're going to have a lot more room. It's going to feel a lot more comfortable. The bridge is going to be a little gentler as you go over. It's going to be the same height overall, but it will be a gentler rise, kind of a broader rise. So all the users will experience an improved condition when we're all said and done.
Okay, so that little road, as you go from Fifth South, as you're headed east, and then you turn to go on a University Parkway to go south. There's that road that currently goes, you know, to the tracks, just kind of dead ends right there, where that 3rd lane going south, just kind of dead ends.
You're talking the one that goes between 5th South and 6th South, that's on the west side, is that what I'm understanding?
I'm looking at University Avenue, you're going southbound from Fifth South.
Mhm.
And there's that 3rd lane where the 3rd lane, like you talked about, the 3rd lane ends, so there's just 2 lanes that go over the bridge.
Right,
And currently it goes down to that road that you say is not going to exist anymore.
right, yeah.
What are you guys gonna do? Are you guys gonna like block it off at Fifth? Are you gonna still allow? Because when the train stops there, that just gets cluttered full of packed and.
Yeah, I think I'm understanding what you're saying, in that lane, that additional lane, that southbound lane that's on the north side of the tracks, that will essentially turn into a right turn lane at 500 South there. So because you won't have the ability to continue down that, you know, the little frontage road we'd kind of refer to as a frontage road, because that's part of where some of the room for the bridge expansion is coming from, is that we're taking up part of that frontage road space, if you will, for the widened bridge. So
We have a slide that shows some of the new traffic patterns to see.
Okay.
yeah, I think.
It'll actually be a right only lane.
Yeah, we'll go through some of the changes that are gonna happen kind of in the corridor as a whole, and hopefully that'll answer that. If not, I'm happy to answer, but I think I'm understanding the question. Yeah,
This bridge was designed to last 60-ish years. How about the new bridge? How long is that designed to last?
60 to 70.
And that's the standard?
That's the standard, yeah. It's hard to say more, but steel, concrete, everything degrades over time.
Yeah.
This is just a close-up of what it'll look like on that west side where you'll be able to walk in the bike path. This is the new traffic pattern after it's done. Clear as mud, I know, and you'll have to pour into this to look at this. It's gonna be a change.
To answer your question, the slide reminded me, I believe you were talking about the third lane is right here, and it becomes a bike lane and a shoulder, and so the transitions, whoops, will happen at north of here on Fourth, and so there'll just be the two lanes that head south. Well, some of the differences will be, so right now you can make all the turns, if you will, at 500 south, which is dangerous, and so part of how we're trying to help this function as efficiently as possible is we are taking away some of the movements that you've been able to make in that bridge corridor. And if what we think of as the bridge corridor is from 920 south to 400 south. That's kind of where you're in the bridge and the roads that interact with that, right? And so some of these movements are going to have to be taken away to help improve the safety and help ensure that the function remains high on the roadway corridor. So where you have been able to make any turn at 500 south, that ability is going to be restricted. So if you're headed southbound, you're only going to be able to make a right turn at 500 south. If you're headed eastbound, you're only going to make a right turn onto University. The ability to turn left will no longer exist after the project's done. Similarly, if I'm coming northbound, I'll be able to, if I'm going northbound on University, I'll no longer be able to make a right turn onto 500 south because we had a conflict. But I keep touching the screen and coming too close to it. I'm so sorry. I need to stay like way back here. Okay. Yeah. So we have a conflict between the right turning traffic and those that are serving the businesses on that little east side frontage road. So you'll be able to go northbound from the frontage road with their larger trucks. They'll be able to merge onto University or their customers, or they'll be able to turn right, but you won't be able to turn right from University from the bridge onto 500. You will be able to make a right-hand turn from 500 going northbound. Now, because we're taking away some movements there, we're going to bring back the left turn at 400 south. So you will be able to make a left turn at the signalized intersection at 400 south to try and recapture some of that mobility. The other thing that doesn't show on this slide is, I'm sorry, I have one question before.
I'm just wondering how you're gonna prevent someone from turning right on Fifth South going northbound.
So there'll be a little island that sticks out. I'm nervous to touch the screen.
Go ahead and touch it.
Okay, right there. Okay, that island. Hey, how about that? That would work perfect. It's like I planned it. So there'll be an island that extends to about the tip of that arrow. And so it won't completely prevent, like, say, a fire truck from doing it if they had to or whatever, but there will be signs, and then the island will make it such that it'll go halfway through the intersection. So you'll have to be pretty brazen to turn right. Because of emergency needs, et cetera, we thought it was important to not completely close it off, but we'll extend an island that to most responsible drivers, they will recognize that, okay, I'm not supposed to turn there. In addition, there'll be signage, et cetera. And then on the south side of the bridge, many of you know kind of the little teardrop or button hook curve that you can make just south of the UTA parking lot. That will also go away. And so your ability to move and make turning movements, et cetera, to get into Front Runner will be at 920 south from the University Avenue corridor. Again, just trying to eliminate some of these movements that over time have proven to maybe be a little more dangerous and a little less, a little less frequent and a little more dangerous.
Sorry, this is.
No, please.
Life. So.
Yeah, no, this is great. That's why we're here. We want you to understand where we're going.
Anticipating more traffic to go down 920 then, because as the Front Runner gets more trains and more tracks and more traffic, having that blocked off right there, I can see left-hand turns being a problem, but right-hand turns into that little UDOT thing. Are you expecting to have to widen 920 at some point, or?
I think to answer your question, certainly because we are taking away that little button hook road, you will see an increase on traffic on 920 south. We feel like that's the safer option because it will be signalized. It gives us the opportunity to do things in the future, like give, dedicated green on right turn during certain phases. So that we are building up larger right turn queues, we can introduce elements like that. But I think it's fair to say that you will see increased traffic on 912. Whether or not that means you have to widen and rebuild 920, I don't think that we've had those discussions with the city to date. And I don't know that I'm prepared to say what the future might hold there. As much as I'm prepared to say, we feel like that's a safer, better place for people to make that turn, and that we can help through our signalization enhance those, those turning movements and keep the traffic function as high as it possibly can be.
Thank you.
All right, so this is our alternative routes map during the construction project, and probably the most important slide I'm gonna show you, and hopefully you will share with everyone you know. We want everyone to know that even though you can go through the work zone, we want you to avoid it. So tell all your friends, everyone who lives in Springville and everyone south and everyone north, if you want to get to Center Street and you're coming up from south, like from Spanish Fork, we want you to stay on the freeway and get off at Center. Don't get off early and try to go through. Same thing with coming down. You want to go all the way down to Lakeview. And thank you to Provo for allowing us to make Lakeview Parkway an alternative route. And we're going to make some small improvements at the intersection of State Street to help with the
arrow
flow.
pop up. I'm learning how to use these tools. These are great tools.
So we're going to have a double turn lane there.
Yeah, so we're gonna do some improvements to just enhance that function as much as we can, because we think that that route will be used quite significantly.
And just so you're aware, there are a couple of improvements near the interchange right there that are in orange. They're minor, just some concrete work, but it's part of this project.
All said and done, our goal is to have all of the pavement that's associated with University Avenue be concrete pavement, and there are some little patches of asphalt. So we're replacing this.
I always use 500 West to get down to the mall. Home Depot and the mall there. I don't see it on there. But it's just not an official alternate route. People still use it
for two reasons. Number one, we do all we can as the state to divert people on the state system. We recognize this as a Provo City road, and we work closely with the leadership team and the mayor's office with Provo, and because there are so few alternate routes that are an overhead crossing. And so there's two elements. Number one, we try to send people to state roads, and number two, this is an overhead crossing. Those who've been using it are not used to the train conflict, and so we hate to publish a map that maybe changes people driving and what they're anticipating. But we would recognize that those who know the area and those who drive it often are gonna find the way that works best for them, and we feel that they'll be safe. Your crossings are safe. I'm not saying they're not safe, but they're unpredicted if you're not used to crossing at a grade crossing. And so we hate to send somebody that's maybe not used to that way.
I'm gonna say this for Travis and everybody else that's not aware of that area. That is a train hub or a train depot. What do we call it, Vern? A train loading dock? What's that called? Switch yard. It's a switch yard. Trains. Vern did a study not too long ago. I remember it said that those trains can be parked up for about an hour on those tracks. And there's times that it blocks Freedom and Fifth and 700 West and 900 West. And the only way in and out of those areas of South Provo is either the Lakeview Parkway, the freeway, or go over to 1600 West, up to Center Street, and over the tracks that way. So Vern came up with a great idea, just telling those residents, hey, if it's blocked, the best alternative route is to get on the freeway by the mall at University and get off at Center Street. I have received quite a bit of pushback because Center Street is what Center Street is. However, I am willing to bet that people are not going to sit for an hour for that train. They're going to go ahead and take the freeway option or run over to 1600 West and go up over Center Street.
Yeah, I guess whenever I would hit the train, I would just scoot around and go back over University, but that won't be an option. So makes sense that people are just going to need to get used to probably taking the center or going around the state.
And this is our project website, and the QR code goes to it as well. And Jenny in the back is our PI, our public input for this project, and Dave in the back is our resident engineer for this project from UDOT. So we have a full team on board.
I just gotta say, you've had awesome communication through the whole process. Like, it's been very impressive, so thank you. I don't know who's in charge of the double track system, but that has not been as effective. So I'm
That's not
glad,
us.
I'm glad that you guys.
No, we just want to bring it up again.
I'm just glad that
You might
guys-
sit next to him in
We
the
are pairing
office or.
Yeah, you guys have been a stellar, your communication's been awesome, and you've met with so many, I've seen this presentation like 10 times, I think. So you
Okay.
keep showing up at different places and doing it, all the neighborhood meetings and downtown, and
Yeah.
so thank you.
George?
Could you explain what the biking and walking alternative routes are gonna be? Or if any, because you said.
Right by the front runners of the bridge that goes over the tracks, we're encouraging people to go over that.
I'm just trying to see if I got a good slide here. I think that overall map might be the best one. We're still working with the contractor to come up with the, the preferred detour routes, and we're certainly going to work with the city's engineering and public works teams as those get refined. What appears to be the safest, obviously, if you're in the southeast quadrant and you want to go to the front runner, we're going to want to take you across the signalized intersection at 920 South. We'd love you to cross at the mall, really, and go at 1200 South and just avoid the construction altogether. If you're on the north, and especially the northeast, as Wyatt said, where we want you to go is we'd love you to go at 3rd South, but that's a pretty busy intersection, and so we're going to try and direct to the 4th South, where there's a signalized intersection. We get you across safely, and then we can get you down 100 west into the new bridge. So we're going to work with the contractor. We're going to try to put up some pedestrian detour signage for those, but we're honing on the routes. The finalized routes will be coordinated with your team, but that appears to be the safest. We've looked at this, and you all have seen the existing bridge, and we're going to condense that traffic, and everything's going to push to that east side of that bridge, and it's just going to get that much tighter, and it's just not a place where we think is conducive to safe pedestrian bicycle travel. And
Yeah,
so
I'm
we
especially worried because the Food and Care Coalition is so nearby and there's a lot of pedestrian traffic, and that's the only way, or at least the most proximate way for people to get over. It's already bad for pedestrians there, but I just would worry somebody would take it without thinking and in bad visibility at night or something.
we're going to put up signage that tells them that it's closed, etc. We're going to do all we can to effectively and efficiently route them around, but we do want to cross the pedestrians at a signalized location on that corridor where we can get them across safely, and we're encouraging all the pedestrians to use the new bridge over the tracks to and to get there safely. And unfortunately, with the limited space that we have, this construction zone is just not going to be. We try to accommodate pedestrians as we can, and there's just times we can't, and the better answer is an alternate route.
So you'll have some sort of.
We'll have some signage that tells you can't go there and give some direction, and we're working through that. That's we're going to start October 1st, as Wyatt had indicated. You're really going to see there's going to be some initial repairs to the east side of the bridge. You'll see a day or two where the east side of the bridge is kind of impacted because we've got to get that east side of the bridge all fixed up so that it can last a year, right? And so we're gonna do a little work there, and then you'll see some utility work start, but it'll be later October, November, before we start impacting the lanes. Probably not. The earliest we'll impact the lanes is be October 20th. There's a very prominent football game that happens on October 18th, and so we don't want to impact the lanes before then. But after that, it's probably just a matter of scheduling and time to where the lanes begin to be impacted and these routes are signed. And so over the next month, that's where all those plans will be finalized and approved and coordinated. So, but that's the work that's actively happening. But next week, you'll start to see the contractor's equipment will start to show up. Our contractor is Wadsworth Brothers, was the general contractor.
Any other questions for Andy or Wyatt?
And if it's okay, we have
Yes,
public
that would be
input cards. I'm just leave you all with one of these. You probably have them 10 times. But that way you leave with the website and with the information and,
I get Wyatt's last name.
Woolley, Woolley.
well, you get that. I'm just gonna patch these out really quickly. And, if this is the 7th time you've got one of these, then you've got a collection going, but, I just wanna make sure you have the information. Because we really wanna make sure that people get good information. So,
Thank you, Andy. We appreciate that. And Wyatt, thank you. And all those who have come with you. Thanks for being here today and
Thanks for having us.
look forward to this.
thanks so much. We hope that we all do as best we can and that, we all hunker down and we'll make it work together.
We'll do it.
So, thanks so much.
Thanks, Andy. We welcome Mayor Kafusi and Scott Henderson, our city administration. Thank you for being here. We'll move on now to our next item, which is an ordinance amending the zone map classification of real property generally located at 3200 West Bulldog Lane from the OSPR and R1.20 zones to one family residential and performance development overlay R1.6 in the Lakeview North neighborhood. Bill Pepperoni, Director of Development Services, will begin our presentation. There we go.
It's good to be with you, council. It's been a long road getting here. It's good to finally be at this point. We started this project a couple of years ago. From the very beginning, the very first goals or direction we were given was to try to produce single-family detached housing and try to produce a development where half of that would be workforce income restricted housing. We've been able to deliver on that, but those goals have driven the design from the very beginning. We brought this to you for annexation back in April of 24. We finished the annexation process in November of 25. Right after that, we went through an RFP process and identified Nielsen Homes. We chose Nielsen Homes over some other very qualified builders because they're very experienced at doing mixed income developments like this. And they were the only ones that proposed a development that was all single family detached. So they met those goals that we initially set out for. One thing I really like about this design is that it mixes the workforce units and the market rate. Builders tend to kind of segregate their subdivisions a little bit based on price point of homes, and Nielsen consciously did not do that. We've been through a lot of history on this. We've tried to keep you informed, so I think you probably know quite a bit about it already. Matt Meyer with Nielsen Homes is here, so if you have any questions for the home builder, in fact, he's got some slides he'd be happy to show you. Recently, the biggest neighborhood concern we have received has been over the possibility of vibration during construction and damage to homes that are adjacent to us on the east side. Single family homes on our east border. They've complained about vibration that took place during the high school construction, and there's just a very huge difference between construction of like high school and single family homes, but nevertheless, Public Works has volunteered to put vibration monitors along that boundary line so that we can monitor exactly what vibration is taking place. Those monitors would be there during construction of roads and infrastructure, because that's when the most vibration potential would be there. We've also had, comments from the public regarding using the property for commercial uses, or should we be doing this without a West Side neighborhood plan? We happen to address any of those issues you like now or in tonight's meeting. Because you have a lot of background on this already, I'll just let you ask questions or let Matt go over what he'd like to go over, whatever you would prefer. Gary?
I'm sure everyone has questions. So I'll start, I guess. The, one of the notes, Bill, mentioned that the project doesn't respect Utah Lake study, the Utah Lake study. That was a resident during the planning commission that said that. Do you know anything about that? In what way would this project not respect the Utah Lake study?
Yeah, I'm not aware of this violating that.
Okay.
Gordon Haight is in the foyer. I can ask him to come in and see if he knows
Okay,
anything
we can
about
come
that.
back to that.
Yeah.
And also people were concerned about the traffic around the high school. So those homes on the north end, their driveways will be into, there won't be driveways coming out onto the lane except for those 4 lots.
Right, there'll be a couple shared driveways right over this
Uh-huh.
area.
Yeah.
We shared them to minimize how many there would be.
Yeah,
But otherwise, all on here, they're back facing lots because
Okay.
we didn't want a lot of accident
Right.
points with high school traffic and
right,
new drivers along that street.
okay. Okay, and so just to confirm, and because since as long as we've been talking about this project, there's been reference to this potentially a waiting list of public servants, teachers, police officers, firefighters for this project. To be clear, only 34 of the lots would be identified for them. They would be prioritized for those lots. The other 34 are open market.
That's right.
Okay.
I'm hoping city employees who would not be income restricted, who would not meet the income restrictions would buy some of those other lots, but they're just open to the
Yeah.
market.
Okay. Okay, and apparently Gordon did not know about the Utah Lake study either, so I'll just kind of save that question maybe. Other questions for Bill? We can go through other slides, I'm sure.
The Utah Lake question hints at the wetland issue, and that's why it's been designed the way it has. This area down here are where wetlands exist, and we designed to stay off of that on purpose.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, is that the only? Is that the only part that is considered even wetlands?
Yes,
Oh, interesting.
yeah. There's more wetland in the south, but within our property, that's the only wetland.
So all the wetlands are not even being built on.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Developers can find ways to mitigate offsite. You can build on wetlands if you mitigate offsite, and the city does have a wetland bank. But Matt and I agree that you're just better off to design around wetlands than try to build on top of them.
Is it fair to say that because this, well, just maybe describe the market rate homes for a moment. Are they also smaller and therefore slightly less expensive than other developments that might have?
I'll let Matt answer the question.
They'll be a little larger than the workforce homes. And we're looking at comparables in the area would be 600s.
Square footage wise?
Square footage wise, 1,500, 1,600, 1,700, something like that.
For the market rate?
For the market rate.
Okay.
So they are, that's a little more modest size than some neighborhoods we've had, right? So
No
I mean,
basements?
I don't know. What's that?
Yeah, there are no
Yeah.
basements on the whole
Right.
subdivision. Before we leave the wetlands, if you could see here, there's a dark green area where jurisdictional wetlands have been defined, which means that if we touch them, then we're under their jurisdiction, which means we have to follow a bunch of rules to mitigate them, which is a lengthy and difficult process. So the decision was made just to stay off of them. The only wetland that we will touch, which is allowed, is for a walking bridge. There'll be a trail that comes around here, and you can put a bridge over a wetland, but you can't touch a wetland.
Oh. So I believe the market rate units are very similar to what is being built north of the high school.
It's
It seems smaller maybe, because they don't have a basement. But maybe similar size footprint.
How about comparing a price point, you know?
Well, that would be low, if he said 600K, the lower price point. I'm answering the question because I have a rental property up there, but probably 100 to 150K below. But they're bigger, like mine has a basement, it's 3,600 square feet.
Well, I mean,
Those are 1,500
So-
to 2,000.
2-story, and they'd be anywhere from 30 feet to 40 feet wide, 50 to 55 feet deep.
What I'm saying is they'll be cheaper than what you could buy today up on the north part.
well, not necessarily, because Broadview Shores has different phases with different products, right? And some of those products are different. They're not all bigger houses, the ones that are being built. is what you're
Yeah, well, most of them that are built today though are a little larger. more
Yeah.
expensive.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I don't know what's coming in the future, so I was just speaking to what I've seen today.
Yeah, coming in the future, I've seen smaller units. But then there's also smaller units across Lakeshore, right? Those older, just one level ramblers, they're smaller. So I don't think it's gonna be out of character.
Okay.
You mentioned a trail. Is the trail connected to something that you're building a trail or a trail that already exists?
Yeah, so, no, we're building the trail.
Okay.
So there's an open space here in between those two lots.
Yeah.
Did I do that?
Yeah, you can write on it.
Well, it's not that big of a trail. So, the trail would come basically down here. They would have a stub there to the end of that road, jump the wetland here, and then come up there.
You're talking like a boardwalk.
Boardwalk. Yeah.
That's great.
So the idea is that people could do about a half-mile loop.
Nice.
And is that just part of the HOA or is that anybody can use that?
Well, it'd be part of the HOA, but it goes right onto a city street, so it's not something that could be, controlled.
Walked off?
Right. We're trying to make the HOA as small and insignificant as we possibly can. And Provo's been really good to work with us on that. The only HOA responsibilities would be maintaining whatever maintenance that trail would need and the bridges. And I believe yes, that's the south side of Bulldog. There'll be a fence back here. Not that big of a fence. And so the other side of the fence needs to be maintained by the homeowners association. Other than that, it should be very, very limited.
So the HOA fee becomes part of mortgage payment, which affects the affordability of the workforce units.
Yeah.
That's why we're really trying to keep that cost as low as we can.
And these are all city streets, right?
Sorry.
City streets?
Yes,
City
city
maintained streets? Private streets.
No, not private, city, yeah.
Bill, I'm sorry, Craig, go ahead.
Just a quick question. Does the, is that Bulldog, what's the street that goes right? by the
This is
fence?
Bulldog.
Okay, Bulldog. And is there a sidewalk on both sides? On one side?
There's only one right now, there'll be two.
Okay.
Only the north side exists, we'll build the south side.
But as was said before, all these houses are going to face this new street.
Yeah.
So there'll be a fence back here. Disconnecting the backyards from the high school kids.
Bill, some of the residents have expressed a preference in this area for mixed use or commercial. What do you know about, with the Ivory Homes project and Broadview Shores, their designated commercial area? I was talking to Councilor Bogdan about this. Is it all the way north to 2000 North?
That's it right there. So you can see the high school site, you can see Ivory's piece,
Okay,
and there's about, I think it's just a little more than half a mile
okay,
between the high school site and that.
okay. And they're just waiting for rooftops, as they say, to get interest.
I've talked to Ivory Homes very recently. They would love to get commercial uses in there. They haven't had any expressed interest yet,
Yeah,
but they would move forward with commercial as soon as they had commercial users ready to go.
okay.
And that's pre-zone.
Well, it's in the master plan. We haven't zoned it yet, but it's in,
I thought their master plan was pre-zone, so they didn't have to come back.
well, their master plan shows that, you're right. Their master plan shows it as mixed use, which you can use as commercial or residential. But the actual, Well, the actual zoning is their SDP 5, which they probably could just go forward without a zone change. You're right, Becky.
Savor that. You just said.
It's on the record.
I never get that. You have the question, then I got.
You're right, you never get it.
Counselor Hope, you didn't.
Thank you. Okay, so originally, was this planned to be residential, like this plot? It was, okay, so we're not eating into our 4 units per acre limitations on infrastructure and all that. This is part of the plan.
So good question. The density is higher than 4.
Okay,
It's just under 6. The reason we're able to do that is because I've talked to you before about a density or unit bank. I've been saving their properties that we anticipated originally as being residential would have been changed to industrial or to commercial. So we've got this bank of 392 units that we can use in other places and not exceed that 4 unit to the acre threshold for the west side. Okay.
and the argument for commercial, I mean, that just doesn't make sense to me there. Like, why would somebody argue that that should be commercial or industrial?
Well, I can certainly understand the desire to have a very convenient fast food place for the high school kids. I totally get that.
Sure.
But I don't think a high school would drive McDonald's to put a store there. Not after what we've tried to do.
Okay, so they want something for the high school.
Yeah.
From what I understand from the people that I've heard from, that's that. Or they're just really upset that the northern part does not have access to a quick grocery store, like south of the river would at this point. And so there's a lot of angst there, not to mention when they lost Clark's, they were guaranteed something would come in that spot. So there's a lot of old open wounds that are there.
Okay.
And I think they think that's a better location for it, but they don't have all the markets. It's just people, right? But two, if the school board wanted to have a public facilities designation for their property, there could be a potential for food trucks to go on that street, right? And that, to me, would be a better way to solve their problem if the school board decided that's the route they want to go.
Last question. How do we guarantee? Can you walk me through again the guarantees around the process and guarantees around public servants or that they're going to be using, that they will be remaining in these homes or purchasing these 34? How do we enforce, I guess, that is workforce housing?
Both short
And what
and long term.
And what categories again are going to fall into this? So it's got to be some sort of public servant. What qualifies as that? I just want a clearer understanding around all that.
So we did a subdivision in Ogden fairly recently in the last couple of years that had mixed. It has about 1,000 lots total, and 277 of them are starter homes. Okay, and so we went through a process of allowing certain categories of people to be able to put their name on a list over others: first responders, teachers, I guess firefighters, first responder. But anyway, we were able to sell all the less expensive homes at to a waiting list that's about 10 times as long as there are inexpensive homes. So building on that, what we're doing here is we put in the infrastructure. Okay, so the city owns the property. The city, go ahead.
Well, we own the property, right? But the land trust will be given to the nonprofit arm of the Provo Housing Authority.
Correct.
To run it.
Yeah. So the property goes to the nonprofit arm of the housing authority, from which we are able to use that as leverage to pay for the improvements. Okay. We build the houses. 34 of them we sell just like we do any other subdivision. 34 of them we take a pre-qualified list that's qualified by Provo City first and then by the Housing Authority second. And we work through those pre-qualifications and try to match the 34 workforce homes with 34.
And it's a
people that-
legal document, like the land trust, we have to put the specifics, like it's for this group of people, like it's for city employees, and we could put a priority on fire and police. But it's all legally spelled out. I mean, we could say we just want people with 5 fingers and 6 toes, like we can put whatever we want as like the rules.
So initially, those 34 are gonna go to the type of workforce that we wanted to. Is there any control over then on the resale?
It's
Yeah,
forever.
because the land under those units is owned by the
Oh, okay,
land trust, okay?
I remember now.
Yeah,
Right. The house itself is owned by the buyer, the
Got it.
land is owned by the trust, and the trust manages every subsequent
I
step.
remember that now. Okay,
Okay.
thanks.
Are we intending to include school teachers in that list? I mean, it seems like a
No.
proximity to the high school.
Well,
we've met with the school district and asked them that we've recommended this tool to them. And the land trust has met with the school board individually about doing that. So that's up to them.
I do have a city employee whose wife teaches there and they're dying to get one of those. Yeah, he's like number 2 on the list.
Wait, explain that. So the school board, I don't understand. Are they not wanting to participate in this or?
They need to do their own. They have
Okay, they can do their
So the land trust has met with them to teach them how to do it and how they can
Okay.
use their land.
So they're not participating in this one
No.
with us. We don't,
But we've,
this is just Provo City,
but
but they
we've
could do
educated
that.
them on it and asked if they do want.
I see what you're saying.
Yes. All that
Right, I
land, we
get
don't
it.
have to do it.
Right, they haven't. Makes sense. They could do their own. Got it.
Same with the hospital nurses.
Yeah, we met with them too.
Essentially leaving it up to them to take care of their workforce. Okay. That's too bad that it's not teachers, but they also have lots of land. So
Maybe not. Future elementary school.
One other question. The workforce housing is on land owned by the land trust. Is the market homes, those are fee simple?
Yes.
Okay.
Kevin, do you have that map that I sent over, that Rocky Shores map from the general plan?
we anticipate a different price point for the workforce housing as opposed to the market rate housing, right? I mean,
Did you
they,
take out the price of the,
land, yeah.
Well, that's part of it.
and you've also made them smaller?
Yeah, so that's what makes this project so interesting. So Nelson Homes has a division called single income homes. Where we are pulling every lever that we can to create a home that can be afforded by a single income. And one of the first big steps that we took was that Ogden subdivision where we integrated lower cost homes with higher cost homes to see, would people be less likely to buy the higher cost home if it was near a lower cost home? Could you tell the difference between the two if you were driving through the community? That sort of question needed to be answered, right? This opportunity here, and the reason that we are stepping a little bit out of our comfort zone of location where we build. We normally just build in Weber and Davis counties. The question that we're trying to answer here is if the land basis, which is usually about 10 or 15% of the end cost of the home, if the land basis is 0, as it is here, how inexpensive of a home can we build? And that will satisfy the criteria that was set out in the RFP, which is up to 120% of the AMI, and will match the incomes that are the target audience for this subdivision. So we can do that by having free land and also subsidizing some of the smaller homes with some of the market rate homes. And so this is a big experiment for us. And if it works, then like you said, the school district has all kinds of property, and so do all the other school districts. But
Travis, I want to point you to that purple section by your house. That is all school district. Whatever they choose to do with that, whether that's an elementary school, whether that is a land trust, whether that is whatever, that is all district.
Kevin, is Rachel on the phone now? Rachel, are you on the line? Between your sessions?
Yes, I am on. I've made it.
I know you only have 10 minutes. Do you have any questions for Bill Pepperoni or Matt with Nielsen Homes regarding the workforce housing project?
I'm really excited about this project. I think that it's a good project for the area. I'm sorry, I just caught my breath and logged in. Please give me a few more minutes.
Okay, that'll be fine. Jump in at any time. Councilor McKay.
You mentioned something, so in my head, I was under the understanding that 30% of a normal home, when you buy it, it accounts for the land. Is that but usually
land and improvements? It's usually somewhere between 25 and 30% for the land and improvements that take it up to where you can build a house.
Saying infrastructure.
Roads,
that's interesting.
utilities, and we still have to pay for those here.
That makes a point. That's interesting. Thank you.
So you mentioned the market rate homes would be 600-ish in that range. Did I hear you estimate the cost of the workforce housing homes? Would that be about $450 then?
So we know that to hit the 120% AMI for this area, that it's somewhere around the high 400s.
Okay.
For a family of four. It all depends on, what exact people are going in there.
Yeah.
And what their combined income is. So there will be some that will be in that price range. We're putting the development agreement together right now.
Okay.
That will specify the other targets that we're trying to hit. And we're trying to hit as low as we possibly can, including, I just read that in the 1950s, the average home size was 800 square feet. Will that work now? Because I've got four kids in their 20s and none of them can afford a home. How can we make that happen? Which is our whole mission.
Right.
Now my understanding too is that with the AMI, we don't have to use Provo's AMI. We use the Provo Orem. Our AMI is 120, right? 109. Is it around 110? 109?
If they have four people in their household.
Oh, is that okay? Because there's okay.
Yeah.
All right. Because it's 80 to 120 AMI, but it's not Provo's AMI. Is it the county's AMI? Is it county AMI?
Yeah.
Okay.
But if we had all 34 of those homes at the exact 120%, are we going to be able to get policemen and firefighters in there?
Right.
And the answer is probably not, unless their spouses work and
Right.
make a lot of money. So that's the balancing act that we're trying to do.
Is it Councilor Hanlon?
Question for Bill. This map kind of startled me for a second because that was, of course, before the delta. And if we go back to the actual delta shape from the previous map, Kevin, I don't know if you have it. But so we're talking about shoreline property when we weren't talking about shoreline property earlier. I guess we had anticipation, right, that the delta would be in there. I'm curious about because I know we're going to have a conversation about annexation request. I just want to get a sense of the broader shoreline of the delta. So that north shore is all undeveloped, correct? And then below this property, what are we looking at? I don't know if we have a map we could pull up where we can see the whole shape.
I can close.
There we go.
below the subject property, George, where you say below the property, which property?
That's what I mean, yeah, so the remaining land there to the south of the proposed development.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of land.
Right there,
That's the other
yeah,
way.
and then all that.
Quite a bit of this is what.
That little parcel is pretty unusable.
Okay.
This is the bottom.
But is there, but we're talking about an annexation proposal for
Yeah,
this
we
there?
received an annexation proposal for this area to our boundary.
Who
And do
owns
we
that?
know what that, I mean, we can discuss that later, but it might be relevant in terms of just thinking overall about making sure that we preserve openness around the delta as much as we can. So I don't know what their plan,
We haven't seen a plan for it yet, just the annexation plan.
okay.
Who owns it?
I can't remember off the top of my head, 2 different owners. There's 3 parcels and 2 owners. They're here.
I mean, it's-
Despain, maybe Despain.
No, not that over there.
Was
Just
the
stay
tribal
over there.
company? Yeah.
Anyway, the delta sort of has obviously changed in a good way the character of that area, and so I just want to be careful that we don't overextend development around the delta
That
in
Broadview
other directions. So
That Broadview Shores one though was already pre-zoned. That was done. Shannon Ellsworth was.
but
one
that's
of the-
above the.
Yeah, it's further north,
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm talking about right along the shore. Yeah, that's up there.
yeah.
Okay. And then there's the whole question of that south.
And it's
Stop there.
it's really, that's where like the llamas and, well, they're along 620 down there, but it's pretty wet. That's why it's all wetlands and marshy, isn't it? South of the subject property.
Sorry.
South of the subject property, that's why it's all wetlands, is because it's pretty marshy. And then you've got over towards Lakeshore, go over it this way a little bit. Along that street that goes, the 620, yeah, up, right, just right above the street. Well, it's just right. You can probably move it in, come down a little bit. This is where all those llamas and stuff are here.
Oh.
And right there is where it's all really marshy.
Okay.
And then,
Any other questions for Bill or Matt? Rachel, did you think of any questions?
Yeah, so since we've already got the road there and essentially a dike and everything with the delta, does that help with any water or settling issues in the property on which we'd like to build?
We still have part of a flood zone on the backs of mostly the not facing, but the back of the western lots that we need to mitigate for. At least we need to take it off of the existing maps because it's different from when it was originally mapped out. So there's some work to be done, but with not allowing basements in the subdivision, and frankly, controlling the whole thing instead of controlling just 1 or 2 lots at a time, that's going to make the water situation a lot better in that area than it currently is.
Okay, so doing it as one project should make it better for all of the structures that are built within it, because we get kind of an efficiency of scale in addressing those issues.
Yeah, it's hard to address stormwater and groundwater 1 lot at a time, but it's a little easier if you do it 1 chunk of land at a time because you can have a plan for it.
Wonderful. Yeah, I've read all of the comments that various people who already live in the area have presented about this, their concerns about the additional development or wanting a different kind of development. But because this is consistent with the plans that the city has made over a long period of time for this area, that it meets our goals that we have, and that having been made aware of particular concerns about vibration or other things, we will take affirmative steps to mitigate any potential harm to the existing residents. I think this is a good a good project to move forward on, and I'm really grateful that we've got the opportunity to do this.
Thank you, Rachel. And thank you, Bill and Matt, for your time. Let's do this again tonight. Next, we have a discussion regarding the Provo River setback and design standards presented by one of our policy analysts, David Pyle.
Afternoon, council. We're hoping to get a little council input and see if there's a majority opinion on how to move forward with this item. You probably remember meeting individually with me and Megan about the Provo River. And from those meetings, these are kind of the council goals that we've identified. Protecting and using the river as a natural amenity, mainly through encouraging developments that actively integrate with the river. That could mean encouraging buildings that front the river rather than turning their back to it as an afterthought. Having small commercial spaces, restaurants, touristy type areas near the river. Developing design standards that integrate with the river's natural beauty and just generally creating an environment that's very friendly both to people visiting Provo and to longtime residents who regularly use the river trail. So the first part of that is the 100-foot setback around the Provo River. That setback has been in the code since the 80s. I've heard it told that the flood of 1983 was kind of the catalyst for its creation. Currently, it resides in 1505, which was created in 2020. And that chapter, in addition to the setback, also includes guidelines for encroaching on that 100-foot setback. My understanding is that every once in a while, a developer will come along who just for whatever reasons just needs a few extra feet for their project plan. And so those guidelines were established to help planning in evaluating project plans to see whether that encroachment was actually needed or not. And then yes.
So wait, so 100-foot setback's always been in place, but we've been doing 40?
I was getting to that. In 2021, those guidelines were further amended, and part of that was a 40-foot maintenance easement. So if certain qualifications are met, yes, the development can come closer than that 100 feet. But this 40-foot easement was suggested by Public Works. They perform regular maintenance on the river, mostly removing fallen trees, removing rock deposits that constrict the river's flow. And it was determined that that 40-foot gap was the minimum that was needed to be able to move their equipment up and down the river. Does that answer your question?
No, because the 100-foot easement gives them that. So why could suddenly buildings be only 40 feet from the river?
Sorry, I don't think
Or
I'm
is that
understanding your question.
Easement just for the purposes of the cleanup, so it wasn't. It just gave them the right to.
It doesn't make sense.
But the last one that we did wasn't 100 feet from the river.
No.
So I'm confused by that.
I'm too.
Are you tracking what? So if we've got 100 foot that was
Setback
done
since 1980.
and since the 80s,
right?
Why are we talking about a 40-foot maintenance? They've already got that because they've got engineering has 100 feet to work with.
Right. What this code is saying is, so you have your 100 feet gap, right? And in some circumstances, developments can come into that 100-foot gap. But if they do, they still need to leave a minimum of 40 feet.
So it's an exception. The 100-foot is not required if you meet the requirements and do the 40 feet instead.
So what are the requirements?
Well, then it's not a requirement.
It's not a.
Well, sure it is, but it's a requirement with an exception. You must have 100 feet in all situations except the situations where you meet the additional requirements and then it's 40 instead of 1.
So what are those additional requirements?
Yeah, and how long have they been in place?
assuming you're getting that. Is that right?
To my knowledge, since this was amended in 2021, as far as what the requirements are, I believe that it happens mostly at the discretion of planning during the application process. Do I have that right, Bill?
Yes, that was done in 2021.
So can you answer that for us, Bill? It just doesn't make sense. If we've got 100 feet, I understand that we may choose by exception to do something different for some good reason. Why would that be the standard instead of the exception? I mean, I don't know if, Bill, if you want to speak to why it was passed, but so what the code says is in the same section where it says you can't be closer than 100 feet, it then follows up and says, however, you can be within 100 feet after review and approval of a project plan application if the project is part of a larger development or approval of a minor project plan application if the proposed project is a single family structure or accessory structure subject to the following requirements. And that's where it says you've got to have access every 400 feet, a minimum 40 feet easement, and it must be in an area where the riverbank acts as a levee or where the special flood hazard areas extend beyond the high bank of the river.
So how did the warehouse fall into those criteria?
That I don't know.
I'd have to go look.
Because it's a larger development.
Maybe
Part of a larger development.
Yeah,
Warehouse part of a larger development?
because it had the other the other warehouse.
Yeah, have the other.
Why would you need? Why would you need more of the 100 feet if you have a larger development?
Yeah, yeah.
I would think if you have a really small development, you need another 10 or 20 or 30 feet. Not if you have a big development.
Well, we're finding our problems.
It doesn't make sense to me.
It doesn't.
So I guess we have a consensus that we don't like the exceptions to the rules.
No, you didn't. David, when you were doing your research, did you look at the 2021 actual ordinance?
Sorry?
Well, so, I mean, this was passed, this exception had to have been passed either in ordinance 2020-15 or 2020, or amended in 2021-38. Did you look at the materials? Was there, I'm assuming there should have been some kind of staff report in the agenda or something to explain why the exception was created?
I reviewed the meeting. I didn't look at the staff report.
Oh. And it didn't, in the meeting, it didn't talk about what the policy background for the exception was?
Bill thinks it was related to a different project north.
George, do you remember?
I don't remember.
What did you guys
Who was it here?
Yeah, you really screwed up. I was on vacation that day.
He's ready to make amends. He's got it.
Yeah.
Am I okay to keep going?
I'm embarrassed to say I don't remember.
All right, so that's how the code is now.
I would think that you would have fought this.
Yeah, where were you, George?
As far as design standards go, the River and Lakeshore Plan does have a few general guidelines. Developments are encouraged but not required to face the river and connect to the trail pathways and to incorporate the river into site design plans. Developing design guidelines for the Provo River corridor is listed as a priority action. As far as I'm aware, that action has not yet taken place. So the alternative.
I'm sorry,
Yes,
can you back up one?
yes, sir.
So is this River and Lakeshore Plan?
Right.
Is this proposed or are you telling us about something historical?
This is in
This
the
is
River
this.
and Lakeshore Plan currently.
This is what we're working on now.
No, this exists, but it's not like in code.
Right, this is like general plan.
Okay, thank you.
And David, you said the first one was encouraged but not required,
That's my
but
understanding.
the other two are required?
Yeah.
All of this is encouraged but not required.
I believe so. Is that right, Bill?
Well, again, general plan document is an advisory document, so
Okay,
requiring it in the general plan
okay,
is the same as putting it as an ordinance.
right, okay.
So this is the list of alternatives that we currently have. As far as the setback goes, you could choose to eliminate the encroachment language completely and have a hard 100-foot setback. And anybody who wants to encroach into that setback will have to go through the variance process and give a darn good reason for it. You could choose to resize the setback or set different setbacks for different property uses. For instance, maybe commercial and restaurant centers can be closer to the river, but the more industrial and office buildings are further away. As far as design goes, it could be codified that developments within a certain distance of the river be required to face it, and or request the development of design recommendations to incorporate into the river lakeshore plan, or to request the creation of a codified Provo River design corridor, which is obviously the most time and labor intensive, but our friends in development services have stated that they're willing to make it happen. Do you have a question, Patrice?
I'm not good at estimating things. Like, what is 100 feet? Like, how wide is this room? Like, I'm not good at that.
Each tile is 2 feet.
Okay. 20 something feet wide.
From this wall to the glass out there.
I would guess that
I'm getting help from my friend named Chat. And this was during a time when we had the FEMA update mapping and safety protocols that we had to impose. What's not clear is the 40 feet was requiring a maintenance easement, gives the city ability to maintain riverbanks, remove debris, et cetera, right? So it had something to do with the FEMA thing. But it says the code doesn't always, there were areas where, anyway, according to Chat, this was to improve, that we were trying to improve
Protection of the river, so I don't understand, and protection of property. So it almost sounds as if the 40 feet maintenance, it was happening only if there was some sort of encroachment on that as a minimum. But it was not intended to be the rule, obviously.
So I've got the staff report pulled up. This is the planning commission staff report. It doesn't give a lot of information. There were two changes that were brought at the same time, and it seems like most of the focus was on the one we're not talking about. So the findings of fact in the planning commission report say current building requirement in the floodplain is 1 foot above the base flood elevation. The proposal is to increase it from 1 to 3 in order to have more protection in the floodplain. And then it just says current setback to Provo River throughout Provo is 100 feet. Changing the setback requirements will allow property owners adjacent to the Provo River more development opportunity outside the floodplain, while allowing the city access it needs to keep the river free. So the only thing it says is the applicant is proposing changes to the setback in order to allow more building options.
Yeah, exactly. Who was we were the applicant?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, if my initial thought, 100 feet, okay, figured out this is probably like 6 feet down to that glass, here to the glass, not this glass, but the second glass. And that right there tells me that, like, I want restaurants or little shops really closer to the river. It's like, I would like something where we had little restaurants and shops and seating close to the river. Like,
But couldn't you make that on an exception basis?
Yes,
And
so I
not
want
make it
some-
just
I think that was the intended
Yeah.
spirit of it, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
oh, that's just one thought, like the warehouse.
Still doesn't explain the warehouse, yeah.
300, but there could be exceptions for public facing amenities that face the river and will bring public.
Let me do one follow-up comment.
Especially if there's a levee, right? I mean, if there's already plenty of protection and you did want front facing properties, and you probably would want it in a safe place, but close enough that the river's actually.
But aren't our levees along, at least on the west side, aren't they not levees anymore?
Well, there's
some of them according to FEMA. It looks like, as I read through the ROA again, it looks like the entire focus of this was on floodplain safety. It doesn't look like there was even a discussion about proximity to the river, other than to the degree that proximity to the river increases your risk of flooding. So it appears to me that the assumption back in 2021 is that The 100 feet was because our minimum build above the base floodplain elevation was only a foot. The 100 feet setback was necessary to protect from flooding, not to protect the river from closeness. And so it looks like the idea was, if we're raising that to 3 feet instead of 1 feet, 40 feet is enough in certain circumstances to protect from flooding. But it looks to me like the entire discussion was about flooding the homes, not how close.
Because we're actually focused on design, not on flood issues.
That brings, yeah, that sounds right to my very bad memory. But when I hear it described to me, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. But that's probably why it's not connecting in my memory that it was about what we're talking about now, because it wasn't.
Yeah.
There was a big pressure to redesign our flood safety things from FEMA.
Right, you're asking a different question
Yeah,
now than
yeah.
being asked that.
That's helpful.
But I don't know, Catrice, if what you're saying raises a question for us, like we all, I think, agree, and based on our conversations with you, we want really clear guidelines and stricter guidelines.
Yeah.
But Catrice raises the question of, would there be situations where closer proximity is exactly what we want for aesthetic or recreational purposes to make the river more intimate? I don't know.
Use an amenity, right? An
Yeah.
amenity where we
Yeah.
eat outside,
Right.
have lights.
So, David, did you finish your presentation? Yes. Okay, so, and what you were looking for is direction in terms of next steps. So it sounds like everyone's on the same page that the 100-foot, I think, should be in ordinance, not in suggestion. And that we look for some way to address those issues of amenities and where it would make sense for the public good.
So is there a way that we can do that so that it would have to come back to council, or would it have to be like a board of adjustments, or how legally would that work?
So in my opinion, if you wanted an ordinance and not a way of suggestion, as much as I hate to volunteer for another project, really doing the river as a design corridor, like we have along major streets, some of our major streets, probably makes the most sense, because that then puts it into ordinance. The point that Catrice raised is one that we have struggled with the river and lakeside plan and other projects where we have people saying we have this desire for certain uses to be able to come right up to the river. I've heard people say we want San Antonio, and yet we've got this 100-foot setback on the books. Those two things are completely at odds with each other.
Yeah.
So working through a design corridor process
makes sense.
Will make us get our arms around those two at odds goals.
So we could just have a handful of criteria that would be would need to be met in order to allow for something under 100.
Yeah.
And so it seems very site specific, right?
Well, it depends if things get redeveloped, right? Because there's parts that if they got redeveloped, they could be the site too. But right now, they look like it could be a site.
You mean site specific, George, or use specific?
I guess both. I mean, it could be the character of the land, right? Like I said, if there's a high levee, right, and right next to the river, and then there's like a really great opportunity for proximity, we could say that looks justified to bring it closer. But if we have to deal with the floodplain issue and the safety can't be guaranteed, even then the aesthetics or the use might not justify it because the character of that particular river bend is not good for it. I don't know. That also sounds very murky to me, like we will never get any consistency if we don't have, clear guidelines. I mean, among the more important things though, I think is sort of the fit, I don't know, that previous list, like facing the river, integrating the river, those seem to me to be more important than the setback issue. Anyway.
Are you suggesting one or the other? Why couldn't we have both?
Well, I'm just thinking out loud with y'all. I don't really know what I think. I mean, it's just that Catrice reminded me that, you know, there would be occasions
Yes.
where closer proximity would make more sense. So that's giving me some pause about saying we will, I don't, it doesn't give me pause to say the default is 100. But if we establish some criteria that we would use to determine when it would be less than that, and we're very clear about that, those criteria, and we're very strict on them, then that makes some sense to me, I guess.
Is that possible, Bill?
It'll be a challenge, but I think it's possible.
But you're up for it? Your team's up for it, okay.
And another consideration, Bill, the river could be incorporated into the design of a project. When you think of the City Creek Mall in downtown Salt Lake, who, in a sense, ran the river through the middle of their mall. I mean, I always hoped that on University Parkway, when that new mill race development went in, that they would somehow incorporate that Provo River into their development. That could happen as well in a design corridor.
Yeah.
Any other feedback, input for David?
Well, so what I'm hearing is a clear desire to have the 100-foot be a standard. And that there would be appropriate exceptions to that based on amenities or restaurant or something, perhaps by use. That we would incorporate, go back a slide, David, that we would develop guidelines in terms of the whole river corridor, and that we would look at the corridor more holistically than onesie twosie. So it sounds like that's where everyone is.
So I think in the motion, you probably want to say something like the 100-foot setbacks, and Bill's team will look at the design corridors and come back to us and.
So before you make the motion, also it'd be helpful to get your input on whether or not you want the current exception taken out of the code in the time we're working on this, because this is not something we'll be able to accomplish during a pending legislation kind of scenario. This is going to take longer than 6 months to come back to you with something. So do you want to leave that exception in the code for the next year while we're working on this?
Remind us what the exception to the code is.
40 feet.
The exception is the 40 feet. So I mean, again, to be clear, the 100-foot requirement is in ordinance.
But then why did the warehouse, you know what I mean?
Because there's an exception.
Yeah.
Right, but the problem, it's really not any different than what you just described, Craig, except that the criteria are very sparse, right? I mean, the criteria are, it's a large development, or it's a single family home.
Or they need it. They're asking for it. They're asking for it.
Right, I mean, more or less, and they're in a zone where the levees have been improved to the point where they actually provide flood protection. So again, the entire focus is on flood protection. So the system that's in the code is exactly what you just described. It just doesn't have the kind of criteria that you're thinking about. So the question is, do we leave the system in there and fix the criteria, which may take a long time? Or do we take the system out by just removing the exception and put it back in after you have the criteria?
So if we did that, if we took it out, then anyone who wanted to make application would basically have to come here.
100-foot.
No, well, they couldn't. If you took it out,
Yeah.
it's 100 feet, end of story, unless somebody proposes a text amendment and tries to change it back. But the text amendment wouldn't be property specific. So
Yeah.
so there's no application that you could, if you take it out,
Yeah.
it's just 100 feet until we come back with a different exception.
It seems like for the next 6 months to a year, you all will be vigilant on this. If a proposal came to you where it was anything less than 100, and Bill's obviously, very aware of this conversation, and staff are very aware of this conversation, it seems unlikely that you would approve something inadvertently that violates the spirit of what you're eventually trying to accomplish if you just left it as is. So right now, is that exception administrative?
Yes.
If someone-
The application is only gonna come to you if it involves a rezone. If the property is already zoned to do whatever they wanna do, they can invoke the exception without coming to you.
I see. So the warehouse came to us because that was a rezone.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the question you were asked to consider was whether to rezone the property, not whether or not to.
But we got way hung up on that question. I mean, that was, yeah. I don't know, I'm just thinking that, we're talking about a matter of a few months, so maybe it's not super high risk, but I don't know.
It's law.
So Bill, what, given this whole discussion and how strong we feel about that, what would your counsel be?
My members should just take it out without involving Gordon, since this is so heavily involved in flood protection. I'd like to know his opinion on this. Also, let me take a look at what potential we have for getting a proposal that's on a property that's already zoned. See if that's any real danger. If it's got to go through rezone like George is suggesting, that's a very strong safeguard there. So let me do some analysis and get back to you. Dr. Gordon, get back to you.
Okay. Then, I suggest we do that. And is that a few weeks, a few months?
Few days.
Few days.
And not make a motion to leave it as is, wait until.
Let's wait until the next council meeting. Sounds like that would be enough time for you to.
Yes.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Come back with more information.
Yeah. So let's just continue this for.
Do we need to,
Let's do that.
do we need to make a formal motion to do that, or can they just,
A motion's probably better. I mean, council chair can always just decide to put it back on the agenda, obviously, but I think just a motion.
We'll just put it back on the agenda then.
Oh, okay. So chair has already announced his desire to put it back on, so we're good.
Done.
Okay, we will now, thank you, David. We'll wait for more information on this. We'll now take a 5-minute recess.
Yes, David.
And reconvene at 1:32. Because each of the next 4 items is 5 to 10 minutes. So we're gonna have a lot of.
Recording stopped.
Oh, nothing, wait.
on the river? the pacing?
Recording in progress.
There's crazy weather.
Good question. Okay, we'll reconvene our council meeting. We're on item number 4, an ordinance amending the zoning map classification of real property generally located at 2858 West Center Street from the agriculture A1.1 zone to the 1-family residential R17 zone. This is in the Fort Utah neighborhood and will be presented to us by our planning supervisor, Aaron Ardmore.
All right, thank you. So this will be on your agenda tonight. This request is coming as kind of an infill development around an existing home. So let me show you what I mean. You can see there, lots 1 through 4. Lot 2, the second one up from the bottom of the screen, has a house currently existing on it. They want to keep that house and be able to subdivide the rest of the property to build 3 new homes. So they've gone through the staff review on how access and utilities and all that will work. The zoning was tricky because even though all the lots could meet an R110, the width requirement of those lots brings it down to an R17. That's something that we're currently studying on the code rewrite to try to navigate those issues a little bit better than bringing the zone request down a few levels to where everything else could have met R110. That's kind of a side note. This one will produce 3 new homes, keep the existing home on the property, limit access to the new homes on that side street instead of Center Street. You'll see that there is this access easement for lot 2 and for the lot to the west, which is also owned by the same family. So they'll be able to maintain that access that currently exists to access those 2 properties. The zoning kind of fits in with, or the lots kind of fit in with what's around them. If you look across the street, those are somewhat narrow lots as well. So that's the request coming to you tonight. Planning Commission saw it favorably, voted 6-1 to pass it. Any questions you want me to answer now or prepare for tonight?
So, planning commission debated a lot about the surrounding properties also being included in this zone. Which ones were they talking about?
They were talking about, if I go back to my zone map here, you can see there's a lot of green still existing there. So there's still a lot of residential agricultural or agricultural A1 lots through the west here. And there's one right here across the street. So they were just asking about any of those property owners joining in with this current rezone. I think because this has gotten to the point it has, those people would have to come in on their own if they want to all join up together or one by one. But that was kind of that discussion of why didn't these people come in on this request.
Well, there's like a dance hall and then there's a building up just immediately to the west, right? So, I mean, it's dance classes and stuff like that. It's a little business. How, I guess I look at this as how would these all develop or redevelop in the future? Would they be something like, a flag lot in the back? Or is there like?
Well, I think
sort of
there's
proposal that it could all just develop?
There's obviously 100 different ways to do it, right? I could see an advantage of if these property owners got together, being able to take a road off of 2970 West, because these homes could stay. You can potentially take a home off 2970 West and kind of redevelop the interior of those properties if they were to go through a rezone of their own. That's one way that I could see it working and keeping those homes off Center Street. But yeah, they could completely redevelop. They could tear down all the homes. You know, it's questions we don't know how the answers to at this point.
Well,
So
center is, what is the designation of center? Is that an arterial or is that?
Arterial.
It's arterial. So we obviously do not want, as this redevelops, we do not want driveways.
we don't want any new accesses. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess my bigger question is that gonna hinder any of these properties from developing?
So this development plan shouldn't hinder any of that. You can see that those are all getting their access off the side streets. So these are pretty much unimpacted by this proposed rezone and subdivision.
Is there a path maybe together to find something that would work so that everybody could get this intersection?
Access from the west.
Yeah. Is that what we're saying?
I mean, that would be ideal, but it would take a lot of coordination between different property owners.
Well, yeah, then it'd be up to council whether they would want to redevelop flag lots or not.
Sure.
I would recommend plans on an arterial road.
Mhm.
Is that something you guys would say no? In a staff recommendation, because it's off of an arterial road, you wouldn't recommend?
I think if the access was already there, I think that's a fine solution. But if you're asking for a secondary access off Center Street, then I think that's something that we'd have to recommend now.
So where is that hard firm line of absolutely where this is an arterial road, we will not allow, even if you have an ADU or something in the back, we will not allow that, we want full access.
That's an engineering call. I wouldn't be able to answer that.
And then the top two lots, Aaron, 3 and 4 would access from that road.
Yeah, as with this one, they would access their driveway to be down here off that side road.
23-8, 28-30. Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Aaron? Yes, Rachel.
It's probably not an important question, but the house that's existing, does it currently face Center Street?
It does.
So it will need a new address and everything?
Yeah,
Because
it will. When this
have
gets
to do
platted,
like
they'll
a
have to
new
get a
front
different
door on it
address.
to face to the east then, or?
West.
The front don't make sense anymore. They would still be accessing off that side road.
Right.
The driver's over here, but
Yeah, because I was glad that you pointed out where the easement was, because I couldn't see it well enough to where that would be, and I'm like, how are they gonna get in the garage?
Yeah.
Like I didn't have a clear sense of what the orientation was of the garage door opening and everything like that.
Sure.
But yeah, new address.
New address form. So that'll be fun to deal with on all
All right,
everything they get mailed.
that was all that I had. Thank
Yeah.
you.
All right, thank you, Aaron. And we'll look forward to your presenting this again for us tonight. Thank you. Next, we have an ordinance amending Provo City Code regarding the area where accessory dwelling units are permitted. This will be presented by City Planner Jessica Donahue. Hello, Jessica.
Hi. Okay, so I know accessory dwelling units have been brought to the forefront of council's attention again, and one of the reasons is this application. So this application is for the property at 3080 North Bannock Drive. It's currently in an R1.10 zone. There are no ADUs allowed. With the ordinance text amendment, it would be added to the map of where ADUs are allowed. And it would be giving any future property owner the opportunity to establish an ADU provided they meet the requirements of 1430. So as I mentioned, it's just going to alter that map, including, you can't even see it on there, but up in the north little corner, 3080 Bannock would be added as an individual property to where accessory dwelling units are allowed. This property got signature support of 66% of their surrounding neighbors. So they meet that qualification in the 1430-040 special use permit. But still, another hot button issue is the name of that section of code versus an ordinance text amendment. Ultimately, they are still just applying for an ordinance text amendment, but they do have neighborhood support, or at least support from their immediate surrounding adjacent properties. Generally speaking, staff is in favor of ADUs. It's mentioned in the general plan as a tool to help some of our housing problems. With this specific application, when it was presented to Planning Commission, the staff report recommendation was to recommend denial. And this was due to the concern that of ownership. 1430 requires that an accessory dwelling unit is occupied by an owner occupant. So the definition of owner occupant is an individual who owns 50% or more of the title and intends to occupy the dwelling unit as their primary residence. This property, there are two owners on title, William Gibson and Christina Gibson. Christina Gibson has uploaded all of the documentation to show that it is her intent to keep this as her bona fide primary residence. William Gibson does not have the intent of occupying the property as his primary residence. So there is currently in the code subsection D that lists what a person should upload to show that they have the intent or that they're making this their primary residence. And then subsection DII has verbiage saying a person who claims to be an owner of the dwelling unit can provide the following documents. Documentation that they haven't included any or gotten any income or tax deduction from the property, that they're not listed as an owner on any rental or lease agreements, and that they're not listed as an owner on any insurance. So the verbiage of that section makes it seem like the intent is that it should be an exception. Staff doesn't necessarily feel that it very clearly states that. The neighborhood comments before this went to a planning commission was at the neighborhood meeting back in July. 24 votes were in favor of it, 5 were against it. And then I just received a few phone calls with additional clarification. The planning commission recommended approval, which was different than our staff recommendation. So their finding was different. They're saying that William doesn't have to upload tax documentation because they haven't had the property long enough for him to have received any tax documentation. So they felt that that met kind of a loophole of not needing to require that additional documentation to meet subsection DII. Are there any questions?
Counselor Bogdan.
So are they renting it out currently?
I believe they do now have tenants in there.
That's what I thought. How come they just didn't? They've known about this since December. How come they haven't presented this earlier? Are they turned in for illegally renting their unit? What's going on here?
As far as I'm aware, no complaints have been given to there's no open code enforcement case in our file for this. No one called to complain when tenants moved in, when they bought the property. They were in the process of buying the property, I guess, December, right around the same time that the administrative process, the actual special use permit, was removed and it became a legislative process instead of an administrative process. That doesn't really affect because it wouldn't have altered the owner occupancy requirement, but they were kind of under the impression that when it was an administrative process, they would have been approved. I don't know. I can't speak exactly to their understanding when they did their due diligence in purchasing, but that seems to be the impression that they were under.
Because that changes things for me. I mean, there was a process and they still didn't follow it. And then they illegally were running it. And now they're trying to get themselves back. To me, it's like going 40 and a 25 and then trying to do the speed limit up so you don't get in trouble. So I'm just trying to, that's what I'm really wrestling with right now is had this application been in January, I would have been like, oh yeah, this was an oversight. But where it took them 6 months to even bring it before anyone, and then they decided they wanted to run it before they were even licensed to do so, that doesn't sit well with me.
Maybe I missed it. I thought it said that they did not have somebody renting, but you're saying they do.
I thought I heard in planning commission they did.
Yes, in planning commission, they did mention that they do have tenants in there at this time.
Chair. Here's the conundrum that I think the council finds itself in, having done away with the special use permit and left ordinance text amendments as the only way to amend the map of proposed areas. Understanding what Councilor Bogdan is saying about her reaction and how the applicant could have handled this better. I get that. Recognize that because of the system that we currently have in place, what you're really being asked is this a house that should be allowed to have an ADU in it for perpetuity, in perpetuity, forever and ever, regardless of who the owner is, as long as the owner qualifies for a permit? That's the real question, because you're being asked to change the map of where they're allowed to even apply. In this particular instance, because of everything we talked about in the last meeting and the fact that you have already started a pending legislation move to remove the paragraph that Jessica just talked about, this applicant, unless you get to a point where you're actually voting on that change and you don't vote for it, this applicant is not going to get a permit under their current circumstances, even if you approve this, right? Because they're not going to qualify. Again, as we discussed 2 weeks ago, I don't think they qualify even if you don't change the code. Their argument for why they qualify goes away with the code, with the change that's coming. But in some ways, that's a separate question, right? A separate question of whether the real kind of underlying question is, do you believe this is a house that should be on the map to be allowed to have an ADU by anybody who ever qualifies for an ADU permit?
Okay. Brian, while I have you here, can you explain to me, because this has been brought up to me by residents, they'll turn in a home that is has an illegal ADU. And instead of enforcing on the home, we put them through the process. Why aren't we enforcing on that? Why are we just allowing them to come for legislative action?
I don't know that I can speak to that. That's a question I think for code enforcement. Because there's two approaches that you can take. Certainly someone who is in violation can fix their violation and not be in violation in the future. That doesn't mean that they can't be prosecuted for the initial violation. And I've seen instances in the past where even the council themselves, I've been aware of situations in the past where some type of violation, not necessarily like an ADU, I'm talking about other kinds of things, but where some kind of violation has come to the forefront, the applicant, regardless of whether they knew about it before it happened, applies for a way to fix it. And it raises such a big policy question that even the council has said in certain instances, we're asking the administration not to enforce on this until we answer the policy question of whether this should be a violation or shouldn't be a violation. In my view, that's a little bit different situation than this, right? Because that's a question, that's where you're actually debating a policy issue of, now we're not even sure of whether this should be a violation or not, right? This one is an issue where you're talking about situations where it's clear that what was done is a violation, and it's clear that the legislative policy of the council is that it should be a violation. Could we prosecute for the violation itself and then let them come into compliance later? Certainly we could. Historically, there's been kind of a long tradition in the city that code enforcement actions are taken for the purpose of achieving compliance, not for the purpose of punishing. And so I think what the situation you're describing, where someone would say, where code enforcement would say, okay, you're in violation. If it's possible for you to fix it, we'll let you try to before we punish you. Wouldn't be out of keeping with kind of historical tradition within the city. But that would be an individual decision for code enforcement. You know, Scott came in, so he can maybe speak to it more intelligently than I can. But it's kind of a case-by-case issue where certainly we have either option. We can punish and fix, or we can allow to fix and then punish when trying to fix doesn't work.
Okay, thank you, Brian. And Scott, go ahead.
Okay, I don't know if I can be any more eloquent than Brian was. Likely not. So, absolutely, I agree with what Ryan has said. Our goal is compliance. If that means that someone that we're enforcing on comes to you and says, I think the code should be changed so that what I'm doing is now legal, they have the legal right to go through that process. What we typically do is we say, okay, you're currently in violation. If you don't start the application process and get it going within a certain time frame, we're not going to wait around forever for you to do that. We give you a time frame, and it's not a long one to at least get the process started. And then once they have an application in, we let that application go through to see whether or not the council agrees with the change that they propose. And then based on whatever decision the council makes, after that, we proceed with any enforcement actions that need to be taken.
Okay, thank you. So is what we're doing here is just spot zoning?
Yeah, I mean, that's based after we threw away the special use permit, that's what we've left ourselves with as an option. Now, having said that, that's a dirty word because for a long period of time, spot zoning was held by certain courts to be illegal. It is, just to throw this out there, it is not illegal to do spot zoning. There are still lots of people who raise policy arguments against it being good policy.
So do we have the option of saying one individual residence cannot come before council to get to get it as ADU thing? Do you have to come in a group of 5?
Kind of, and this alludes back to the conversation we had a meeting ago with some of the questions that Councilor McKay had. Because of this system we have where we've prohibited ADUs in certain zones unless they happen to sit on this map, I don't think you can legally tell somebody, you can't even ask us to change the map, okay? Now, what you can do is you can disincentivize people to ask for the map. So for instance, right now we have this process where if you gather signatures, you don't have to pay the fee and you don't have to submit all of the application things, right? There's a proposal coming forward in a few minutes that Malia is going to talk about to actually get rid of that in answer to some questions that were asked last time. But an alternative is you could say areas that meet a certain minimum acreage may apply for a text amendment to the map without paying the fee and with expedited processing. But one home can't, right? You could also, I suppose, if we actually took the time to figure out how much time we spend on applications, you could put a fee in just for single properties, and it could be a higher fee because you might think that processing those kind of applications takes a lot more time. You could also vote on and pass, either by resolution or just in a work session, a council statement of intent that you are not inclined to favorably consider such applications. And you could give that to planning staff so that anytime somebody comes in to file for one, they can hand them that and say, you have the legal right to do it, but you're fighting an uphill battle and it's not likely to be approved. So there's maybe some other options. Those are the ones that I've thought of so far.
Thanks.
Councilor McKay?
Now, Jessica, I thought that they got the votes, but then people rescinded their signatures.
That is for the ADU application in Oak Hills. That will be at council the next session.
Okay.
This one, no one has reached out. Yes.
We didn't want to.
Back to back. No one has reached out to express concerns about this one.
Well, thank you, Jessica, and we'll have a chance to talk more about this issue tonight, Malia.
Just one clarification, because it'll be important when we talk about 1430 later. It's just that it's not technically a rezone. It's more an ordinance text amendment for the use of the property. So their zoning stays the same on the house. If you grant the ADU allowance, you're just allowing another permitted use on that specific parcel, but their zone stays the same. So that's like a weird clarification, but because we have this lovely map that I love, it's just allowing another permitted use on a parcel. It's not rezoning the property. So there's underlining zone stays the same.
Yeah, that sounds really like splitting hairs.
It does.
It's been so.
But I just want to point out, because a rezone is different than an ordinance text amendment land use. They're both land use, but they're different.
And that's presumably why the signature process was necessary. In this
Well,
case.
the signature process, I can talk about it when we get to 1430. There's a context, yeah.
But that seems to have created confusion.
Yes,
about the
it has
permanence
created a
of
lot
the
of
allowance. So the
a
allowance
lot of confusion.
for an OTA is permanent.
Yes.
So it's not a special use that
Yes.
goes away when the.
Yes.
I mean, I mean, it seemed like, what, 2 weeks ago, we voted on a lot that was weird shape that didn't quite fit a flag lot, and, it just doesn't seem to me, I think we invite a whole bunch of other problems if we say, you can't ever apply, because there's gonna be reasons, legitimate reasons, it seems to me, why an individual owner can make that request. I mean, Brian just gave us some other options for disincentivizing it, but I would not be in favor of saying, it sounds like you don't even recommend it as a legal thing, a legal route, but it just seemed very problematic to, that request was given to me by a number of people, and I said, I don't know if you want us to have that kind of power in the city.
I mean, I guess as I think through it, going back to Councilor Bogdan's question, I suppose there's nothing that prevents you from putting something in the code that says you may not submit an OTA to amend the map in this section for a single family home. But the problem with that is there's nothing that prevents somebody from submitting an OTA to remove that section. Right? So you can make it illegal, but then they can just apply to make it legal again. So it doesn't really get you very much.
But we still can say no, right?
Right.
All right. Thank you, Jessica. We'll look forward to continuing this discussion tonight. You
Yes.
can keep the floor then and move to the next item, which is an ordinance amending the zone map classification of real property generally located at 920 south, 1020 west from one family residential R1.8 to residential agriculture and residential agriculture to the one family residential R1.7. This is in the sunset.
Yes, this one should be a little bit more straightforward than an accessory apartment. So this property, as you can see at 920 West, is currently located in two different zones, the R1.8 zone and the RA zone. The property owner wants to subdivide and create a second lot. So this is what the subdivision would look like. So they want to rezone the property to R1.7 so that they can, both lots will then meet acreage requirements and lot width and lot depth requirements. Just to allow the creation of a second lot that would allow for one additional single family dwelling.
Okay, any questions for Jessica on this one?
No, I know the property owner. And his mom and his grandma.
Okay, we'll,
What insights does that bring?
Laura Lee has been a friend of mine for years. And I know her because of Laura Lee, and Anthony is my oldest age and went to elementary school with my oldest elementary school. So I'm okay. I mean, I know Laura Lee well enough that that kid steps a toe out of line, she's gonna have him back in line. So, and so will I. So it'll be fine. He has a scrap of trash on his lawn, she'll be after him.
all
What
right.
is that structure on the northern lot?
That is, I believe, an existing shed. It's not a dwelling unit. And the,
Some sort of barn?
yeah, some sort of remnant from
I kept it for
agricultural use.
cars.
All right, we'll vote on this item again tonight also. Jessica, thank you. The next two items will be presented by our city planner, Hannah Saltz. The ordinance amending Provo City Code Title 14 to remove data centers as
Go ahead.
permitted or conditional uses, followed by a new data center overlay zone. Hannah, welcome. Thank you for coming.
My pleasure. Scott's here as well to answer any questions on the power side.
Yeah.
So this is strangely blurry, but this slide's not important. This first item is just removing every other instance where data centers are allowed in our code so that we can then go back in and add the overlay and have that be the only one that applies. This one is very straightforward. There we go. All right, as you know, currently permitted in 19 zones. We have the map as well. This is just everywhere people could request that the overlay be applied, but every parcel might not meet the overlay standards. So this is just the minimum evaluative threshold. Any questions on this before we move on to the actual overlay? Okay, awesome. The overlay zone that we brought with this proposed new text. It's not coming.
So we're moving on to item
To item 8
now.
Were they read in together or am I good? Okay,
Well,
thoughts.
They're separate.
they're separate. And tonight they'll be separate.
Oh, that's weird. Yeah, that's very strange. Well, all of it is more or less the text. I'm happy to jump in. The council requested 2 shifts to the policies that we brought last time, so we made those. We turned it into an overlay zone so that it would have to go through a full rezone evaluative public hearing process rather than keeping it administrative or just with planning commission. And we added a goal that they have to state how they're meeting the goals of the general and conservation and resiliency plans explicitly. There's one more change that just as staff, we had some concerns about. We had that filler where proof of emissions credits, if they were even necessary, had to be given within a certain time frame, or the rezone would be revoked. We had concerns about that time frame. It's very nebulous. It really depends on how those are being traded on the market. Also, some concerns about vested land interests for anyone who's already gotten the zone applied. So we struck that and added in instead that those emissions credits are required for building permit issuance, which gives us a little bit more of a flexible timeline and tethers it to another process so the rezone can be its own thing. but just letting them know upfront in this zoning code that they will be needing it in the future. Yes. Okay, sorry. Yeah, this was the second item, so it jumps right in. I was so weird, just on the first slide though. Well, no. I spoke too soon. Okay.
There we go.
There we go.
Great. So this text that we've given you now with the proposed overlay zone otherwise is the same in policy, just kind of restructured to be a zone, but has the same policy points. We still run into the barrier of having no universal baseline standards, so we put the burden of a large amount of reporting on them to then be evaluated by planning commissioners, staff, and the council. Planning Commission had 3 suggestions on ways to improve this. One of those was helping out with that. I'll get to the end when we can see the full text. This is weirdly offset on this screen, but it's fine. You can still tell. This data center overlay zone basically just kind of is the triggering process for the convergence of all of these overlapping policies, especially the council one that you're considering as well. Right, here are the areas of concern and points in the overlay zone that addresses it. I'll leave this on screen when we're talking, but I want to just jump to those planning commission suggestions so you have those in mind. They suggested that we add a definition to include a minimum size. At what point is it a server rack and at what point is it an actual data center? When do these start applying? We have text for all of these, by the way, so you can vote on them up or down individually, and they'll be ready to go in the ordinance tonight with an amendment, a motion to amend it to add them, but we'll have the text ready. And requiring the applicant to cover the cost of an independent review of the environmental reporting. So not only is there a reporting duty on them, we as staff kind of lack the expertise. And frankly, most elected officials do too, especially as the market keeps changing for data centers. So the city would be able to pick a third-party environmental reviewer or data center specialist to evaluate their application, and they would pay the fee for that. Also, this is the final planning commission suggestion, require a comparison of the data center's anticipated energy and water usage, not only against other data centers of a similar size, but of other industrial type buildings and uses that are of a similar scale. Just they can compare trade-offs. If we give this land to a data center, how much more would that impact us than giving it to another potential industrial use within these zones? Again, we have all the text for these ready to go. So I'm happy to go through this.
I have a question related to that.
Yeah.
So David sent us over some stuff and I haven't gotten all the way through it.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the ways that they cool these computers actually contaminate quite greatly the water. Do any of those suggestions have anything to do with that so that we can understand that and what that means to us?
We do require a water use plan and a mitigation plan for excessive water consumption, what they're doing to conserve water, more or less. We could, if you're concerned about contamination, add a requirement. The concerns with contamination that I've found, you might have found different information, have mostly been when systems crack or leak somehow and it gets into groundwater. If the building is properly built, it shouldn't be contaminating. Mm-hmm.
Councilor Bogdan, one of the things that I'd point out at the beginning is remember that where we end up with this is that we actually intentionally are making this a council process, not an administrative process. Mm-hmm. So what this does is it creates an overlay zone that someone would have to apply for a rezone to apply the overlay zone to their property. So in kind of crafting the ordinance, instead of trying to come up with a comprehensive list of all the criteria that somebody must meet, we tried to come up with a list of the things that they must tell you about. And then it would be your decision in deciding whether to apply the overlay zone or not, whether you agreed or not, right? So instead of trying to say, here are the only methods that might work, and here are the specific, it just has provisions in it that says your report has to talk about how you're going to cool and what the environmental impact of your cooling is going to be.
Yeah. So what's your take? Can we go back to those planning commission suggestions? Sure. What's your take with this conversation that you just brought up? What's your take on those?
I think all of those are reasonable suggestions. You could, frankly, with regard to I really like number one. Actually, I just had a conversation with Eric Davis from BYU who actually raised that very concern where he's like, I'm here because I don't know whether our server racks count as data centers or not, right? So that actually makes a lot of sense to me. I don't know whether the definition that I can't remember what the planning commission's recommendation was for the definition, and I don't have the technical expertise to talk about whether that's the right definition, but including one I think is a good idea. The other two, I think, are really more of a policy question of, are those things that you want when you're considering an application? It makes sense to me that they would be. I guess the second policy question is, are you so sure that you want them in the ordinance? Because you could always ask, even if they're not in the ordinance, when you have an application, you could say, I need more information on that, and I move to continue this until I get more information.
Yeah.
So it's a question of whether you're so sure you want them in the ordinance to be required.
Well, is it better to have it up front so they know what they have to have? Because I gotta admit, I'm dumb when it comes to stuff like this. This isn't my bag. This isn't my specialty.
My question, I went through all of this, and perhaps this is better for Provo Power. As I read through it starts to feel like data center prevention policy. And I understand that we need to be extremely careful. So I am in line with making sure we do that. And it just seems onerous. And that just may be the nature of data centers because there's so many challenges, associated. So I'm not pushing against any of that. I'd love to hear your take on, how does this compare to other cities and what they require? Is this over the top about what's expected? Do you have a sense for that?
Excuse me.
We applaud you wanting to speak with Barry Thomas.
That's a great question, and we don't know the answer to that because frankly, as far as I know right now in Utah, we are probably the leading municipality that's going forward with this. I talked with several just in the last couple of days in another meeting related to this. And they asked for some documentations that we can provide them to help them through the process. So I called all these other municipal utilities and they said, you're so much further down the road than we are. We're not even close to that point. And so there's really not a lot of this going. We're kind of pioneering this. And so that's what we're trying to do is just provide these vast protections and then give you the ability to be able to narrow it down where needed. In relations to that, there's a lot of different data out there on what they do and don't pollute. And so you have to be very careful where you read, I think. But I think Hammerhead was spot on, with the water concerns especially. That building was built properly and if it requires them to have these fail safes in place, then that shouldn't be an issue. One of the data centers actually talked to us about, connecting over gray water coming from the sewage treatment. They're far enough away. Wouldn't seem to be financially smart, but they said we want to look into it because it's beneficial to us. But I don't know if that answers your question. There's just not a lot of information out there.
Yeah, so that's the case for Utah, and nationwide, there's a lot of data centers. Are we benchmarking on cities who are actually doing this?
I can speak to that if you'd like.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so I pulled a lot of research from Virginia, where a lot of this is coming from with these smaller data centers in your communities. A lot of the other data centers we're seeing are these mega multi-hundred getting into, thousands of megawatts. It is comparable to Fairfax counties, but Virginia also has much more strict state level environmental reporting. So we are kind of supplementing some of that state reporting by asking to view it at a municipal level. They will have to produce in Utah, anyone coming in will still have to produce some of these. They will still, for our division of air quality, if they're getting the emissions credits, have to have the analysis of what those emissions will be and report that to the DEQ. Asking to also see a copy and asking them to pay comparatively to the rest of the cost of a data center, it's a fairly small fee. If they're willing to build a power station and transfer operations, they'll pay an analyst fee. Isn't that much more onerous. A lot of this is what they'll be doing anyway. They're already going to have to know what their water use is going to be. They're already going to have internally weighed different mitigation strategies for water. We're just asking them to show their work. But it is not much more onerous than combined multi-level municipal state reviews would be. The only other city I could find anything comparable for in Utah is Eagle Mountain. Most cities don't run their own utilities, so they're kind of held back by Rocky Mountain Power anyway. Eagle Mountains is incredibly permissive. It's about a 9-page document, and honestly, 3 pages of those are design standards.
It's very open, but Eagle Mountain is trying to actively court data centers as revenue sources, where we are okay with them coming in as revenue sources, but we want to make sure we're doing it a lot more cautiously than I think Eagle Mountain is willing to do right now. So yes, it's strong, it's more strict than Eagle Mountain, but I think that accomplishes the objective we're trying to get.
So, and just to be clear, I'm not suggesting we have the lease standards. I also just trying to get a sense of how that compares. So that's helpful.
One of the data center applicants went back and forth, reviewed earlier versions of this back when it was a administrative process. And again, now that it's a rezone, they understand the reason it's going to take more time, but it's time they're willing to spend. Data centers take a long time to build anyway, so they're okay with this. They were even talking about possibly coming to the planning commission meeting to speak in support of this, or emailing the planning commission. With agenda uncertainty, we didn't want to have somebody coming in and waiting all evening, but they are in support of this. I don't know if they ever sent those emails, but we have gotten at least one show of support from a data center developer.
Thank you.
Other questions for Hannah? This will come to us tonight.
Well, I wonder if
Councilor Hanley?
Going back to the water contamination issue, I mean, I think Brian's guidance is very helpful, but I wonder if it wouldn't hurt to say water use, water and wastewater explanation, conservation strategies, and pollution mitigation and contamination mitigation or something like that. Because that just says conservation.
We could say conservation and contamination prevention strategies.
Anna, do we need to vote those three up and down right now? Or is
Yeah.
that in the night?
We have all of the language ready to go, but the earlier we can get the text ready, the better for council staff. But if you need more time to think about it, that's fine. The other slides here are just, sorry that it bumped up on my spacing weirdly, but this is just text showing how it would be added. But this is the crux of it. And again, the downside of not having any strict, this is your numeric threshold you have to meet for a quantitative analysis for approval. Downside is that it puts the decision on you, but upside is it gives you the leeway to say this is not enough at any point. There is no standard by which you are bound either, as long as it's an explanation you can justify.
And
So you have
I
to-
personally really like that because this field changes so much and so dynamic. Whatever we come up with today, 2-3 years from now, it could be a very different world. So I like that approach.
So are you in favor of those three with adding a contamination, what did you say, contamination preventative?
Mitigation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we add those three with the contamination mitigation, whatever that is, into that, to put into this code that we will see tonight.
Okay, is that, any questions, comments?
Yes.
Councilor Rachel?
So I don't know yet that the definition for a data center as opposed to a server rack has adequately been explored. I don't know that it's actually an informed definition yet. So I'm not comfortable on voting on that right now. I think it would be helpful if we could talk to, I don't know, if we could get more information on what that means and what would be an appropriate definition to make.
A lot of the policy documents that I have seen from Western Resource Advocates, other analysts, start with the definition. So that's where I got this definition, is data centers are a dedicated facility. Because frankly, the energy to run the system is not that extensive and not that much of an environmental impact. It's the cooling system, which tends to be something you get in these larger, where you just have a rack of servers, there's fans, but you don't have these major evaporative cooling systems until you start getting enough to put them in their own building. So it is the building that is dedicated to housing network servers and computing infrastructure as its primary use, rather than being a research lab that also just has a few servers in it. But primary use is a research lab, also excluding any sort of cryptocurrency or blockchain mining. Those tend to be the two major points of the definitions I've seen. If you would like
Well,
more,
and the reason I'm curious too is thinking about BYU, where we've got like genome sequencing and other things that, and you know, their bioinformatics department, where they're crunching huge amounts of data. And they appear to have been able to house, you know, all of those servers and everything within their existing buildings. But I don't know if they could be defined as separate facilities within those buildings because it's a dedicated space or something. But But if they've already integrated that into their campus, we're already existing with whatever emissions or anything, they clearly already have taken care of the potential adverse environmental impacts with the way they've already structured it. So I would not want to put in something that would adversely affect their ongoing operations that they've already established.
Two thoughts. I think that's a very valid policy consideration from the perspective of the motion made by Councilor Bogdan. I view her motion as a little bit narrower in the sense that because the Planning Commission's recommendation was to put a definition in, I think it might be simpler if we considered this as only vote no against that if you actually don't think we need a definition.
Okay.
Once it's in, then I think it'd be entirely appropriate for there to be additional consideration and maybe motions about how to change the definition.
Okay.
With respect to that particular issue, the one thing to remember here is that everything BYU's already got built is a even if it violates this, is a non-conforming permitted use. So it's not going to affect, even if this definition is problematic, which I don't have the technical expertise to know whether it is or not, it would only impact BYU to the extent that they wanted to build something new that fell under the definition.
Right, but they are building new things all the time.
Yes.
And if they need some sort of extensive data processing for their new medical facility, then they could run afoul of this.
Certainly. And Eric Davis from BYU Legal Counsel's office was here. That was one of his actual precise questions. He had to leave, but he told me that he's going to be looking at this, and he told me that he would be in contact with Hannah and I afterwards about any concerns or questions he had. Again, I don't remember where we're at on our time frame as far as the pending legislation.
October 23rd.
Okay, because one option too, because of what I just said about the non-conforming uses, we can always pass the package and then tweak it if we decided that we put something in that was
Yeah.
overly broad.
Well, I didn't talk to Eric about this beforehand before raising these questions. And with that clarification, I'm comfortable voting. Thank you.
Okay, so we have Councillor Bogdan's motion, seconded by Councillor Christensen.
Was the motion for adding a definition?
Yes.
Oh, for all three? Okay.
And to adding the contamination mitigation language.
Yes, I've got.
We'll call for a vote. Councillor Henley? Yes. Councillor Bogdan?
Yes.
Councillor Hope?
Yes.
Councillor Garrett, yes. Councillor Whipple?
Yes.
Councillor McKay?
Yes.
And Councillor Christian?
Yes.
So that motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Hannah, and we'll see you tonight. We'll now take a recess and reconvene at 2:35.
You said.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Oh, Gary, can you turn on your mic?
We'll reconvene our meeting now. Our next item is a discussion regarding Provo City Code Chapter 14.30 Accessory Dwelling Units, presented by Council Policy Analyst Malia Daly.
Perfect. Okay, so today's discussion, last week when we were discussing a different thing related to ADUs, which was the definition of owner occupant. Which, just as a heads up, that was discussed in Jessica's item regarding the Bannock Drive ADU amendment. That text amendment, getting rid of the DII section, is going to Planning Commission tomorrow night. So that will go to Planning Commission tomorrow night and then come back to the council on October 21st, I believe, in that meeting. So, but as part of that discussion we had last week in the work meeting, we also discussed some possible amendments to Chapter 1430, which is accessory dwelling units. So council staff met with legal and development services, and we have with us 3 possible amendments here to talk with you about. And I'm just The 3 slides are the 3 amendments. So the first one, this is one specifically brought up by the council, and we kind of touched on it earlier today, which is repealing the entirety of 143040, which is inappropriately named a special use permit. It used to be, but now, as we discussed, it's actually just a map ordinance text amendment. This is the signature pathway for an ordinance text amendment. So this section used to have the 2 pathways in it, where an administrative process and a legislative land use process. We got rid of the administrative process earlier this year. It is now just the legislative process, which is the exact same as someone could apply if we got rid of this, which is just applying for an ordinance text amendment to be added to the map of allowed parcels that can have an ADU. But with this section, if you get signatures, your fee gets reduced or waived. I don't remember. So that, and it helps give you a little bit, the purpose and intent was to give you more evidence to the council to say, see, my neighbors are approving of it as well.
How much is the fee today? Like, if
An
you don't,
ordinance text amendment fee, I think, is $1,100. So this was waiving that if you got signatures. Yes.
I'm for getting rid of the signatures. I think it's really divisive, but I thought the conversation I had this morning was very interesting. The woman said, we would have never had known that this was going to go before council unless they had gotten the signatures. And I said, so what's your suggestion then? Because you're telling me this is very divisive, but at the same time, you want to know that it's coming before you. And so, there you go. But I do know that they have to give notice within 1,000 feet? Is it 1,000 feet of a project? 500 feet? 500 feet of a project. So she did acknowledge that some of the neighbors did get those cards for planning commission, but they're not done for council? I thought it was both.
The card that gets sent out includes, ever since our revision of the process a few years ago under the Sewell Commission, as it's been referred to, the postcard that goes out gives the date for both the planning commission meeting and the council meeting.
So they just saw the planning commission and just neglected to catch the council meeting? Okay.
So that's already going out right now, even with the signatures?
Yes, according to them, yes.
Well,
Because I had a suggestion from somebody with the property that's coming up, I think on October 7th in my neighborhood, that was trying to balance that. And their suggestion was, the problem, you'll hear more about this, maybe you've already heard, but the problem in my neighborhood appears to have been just like, if you put the pressure on the person who's applying, on the applicant, then they may or may not communicate the information accurately to their neighbors. They may or may not be overly forceful in trying to get their neighborhoods to agree. So the request that I got was, why can't the city do the surveying and get the information? Like, it's all independent of that person. The city says, here's what's being proposed. Here's what the implications would be. This is what our law says would be, et cetera, et cetera. And then do you or do you not support this? And it goes straight back to us. So it doesn't have to create new tensions in a neighborhood that weren't there or already were and just got exacerbated.
I'm against putting any more work on Scott and his team.
I can kind of speak. I was kind of gonna, if we went down this road, give a history of how we even got to this and where the signatures even came up. So this whole section was added in 2022, I believe, yes. As attempt to be a compromise between what Becky brought up, where, well, I wouldn't have known about this if my neighbors hadn't had come and ask us, and city staff saying, for one land use type, putting this extra process on staff to go and do all this when we're already doing everything else seemed a little bit onerous and a lot more. We also explored the idea of multiple properties have to apply together or come in. But like Brian talked about earlier, you can't really, we can say that in an intent statement or different things, but people can still apply as they want. We talked about neighborhoods voting either at neighborhood meetings or they like get together and vote, but then that presented the same thing of how do you verify signatures or who is running the vote for that. So we explored all these different avenues and this was the option that was decided upon. But I mean, as we've seen and the issues that you brought up, there's still cons to this process. It does provide an additional notice of neighbors talking to each other about the ADU, and then they are on notice if it does happen and then they're out of compliance, then they're more likely to be able to report. But it does have different kind of cons to it. So I think the council, all that to say, the council can go any direction that they want. I think we have more hindsight's 2020 and we have eyes wide open about the plus and minuses of everything.
I'm curious, Scott, if you do think it would be a very onerous thing if it's automated through email or something, that all the residents in the neighborhood in the immediate proximity get notification and an opportunity to provide input. Is that, I'm just curious.
Interjecting before Scott even talks and just say, I mean, that's what Councilor Bogdan was just describing, is that's what we already have in place. We have a process in place, which is we notify citizens of things you're going to be voting on, and that triggers them giving their feedback to you. Right? Either by calling you, sending you an email, showing up to council meeting. So this would be creating a completely unique process for one specific thing to do the same objective in a completely different way, in my opinion.
well, that sounds great. I just don't understand why you heard something similar to what I heard, which was, well, if it hadn't been for the signature, I wouldn't have known.
Well, she like.
I don't know what accounts for that.
She did admit that letter, whatever.
But with text amendment, are we saying that text amendments don't get the postcard sent to them?
They should. And
They do.
Should get the notice.
They do.
So maybe we need to make sure that maybe because we've done this weird process where they don't pay the fee, maybe it's not getting the postcard, I don't know.
Well, she admitted they got one.
Oh, they got a postcard.
But she said it was only for planning commission, it wasn't for council, so I don't think that they read it thoroughly. Because they just said the postcard goes out once before planning commission meeting.
About planning commission and
Yes.
council.
And about planning
Yes.
commission.
I will just say, in 15 years of doing this, I can't count the number of times that people have showed up to say they have never heard of something that we have sent notice.
Yeah.
Yes.
It will never go away.
Not gonna argue. Okay, I just thought I would represent that perspective. I thought that was interesting, but if it seems like we're already doing it. I don't know. Councilor Hogan?
Well, did you have more to present?
No, the recommendation I have two more, but the recommendation for this amendment is just to repeal this. And then the two ways that someone can get an ADU is to either get a rezone to zones that allow an ADU, or as the Gibson amendment that we're talking about later tonight is they try and add their property's parcel to the map. So those two would exist. We're just getting rid of this signature way. The fee waiver.
So as it is today, this basically it provides them with a fee waiver.
Yes.
And so the recommendation is just get rid of the fee waiver.
Yes.
And I'm fine with that. I don't see the need to offer somebody a fee waiver. If we don't have to, I mean.
Agreed.
The thing is and I get what we're trying to do is stop the inter-neighborhood, conflict. I just don't know if we ever will, because even if, let's say we got rid of a text amendment completely and we said, oh, you have to do a zone change, you're still going to get people lobbying. You're still going to get people showing up at neighborhood meetings or at council meetings, neighbor against neighbor. I just don't know if we'll ever get rid of it. I'm not saying we need to keep the signature thing. And I understand there's a lot of, council members who don't like the signature. I guess I don't know if we're ever going to get rid of, as long as there is a path for somebody to get an accessory dwelling unit. I don't think we're ever going to get rid of this conflict within neighborhoods when somebody tries to get one. How much is it for a zone change?
It's the same, I believe, 1100.
Like 1100. Okay. Yeah, I guess we're still going to get people applying, paying the 1100, and then you're still going to get people emailing us saying we don't want this and we do want this. And I don't know. I don't know if we get rid of there's any way we'll get rid of that, but
No, but at least you don't have one person knocking on the
actively,
door.
yeah,
An active fight.
No,
Yeah,
I think you're right. I mean, I've been telling people in my own neighborhood whom I know, like, we're gonna fix this. I don't think the signature process helped, but you guys need to behave yourselves too, right? It's not like you haven't created some problems all on your own without our process getting in the way. So people just behave, but people are gonna misbehave.
we're still gonna get ADU applications no matter what, is what I think. And I think part of the reason, I think part of the appeal of providing these other paths was that it didn't have to always come to the council. Because this is time consuming, that we have to like deal with an ADU application. I mean, I don't know if it's best use of our time. Maybe we won't get that many, but it seems like every meeting we have some one or two ADU applications. Is this what we want staff spending their time on, as opposed to just making it administrative? I think that was the appeal of the administrative path, was now we can streamline this a little more. It doesn't have to always come to the council, because I don't think they're going away. I really don't.
I think we've only had 2 and it's been 9 months.
We've had more than 2.
Probably. I only recall this last one and these 2.
Maybe I'm thinking of emails we're getting in anticipation of the upcoming ones. I don't know.
I think there's 4 currently going through the process.
4. Yeah, that's more like what I was thinking.
Which is about what it was when it was, the pathway program was only about 6 a year or something.
No, we had more than that.
12.
22 in 2 years, but not all of those were able to be approved.
No.
So I don't want to cut off discussion, but this is the first kind of recommendation. I can go through the other 2 and then come back on a motion on this, but if there is a motion on this, we can do that now before I go to the other 2.
Quick question. So we had one little neighborhood cluster come in and do the group change.
Yes.
Is there any indication that there's another neighborhood or section of the city that would like to do the same thing, that would be harmed by us repealing this? Or if there's no interest, does it matter?
Well, they can still, people can still come in as a group. They can always do, like, for example, today there's an annexation that's coming in as a group. Like, people can do a planning application as a group of properties or as a single. So they can still do that to be added to the map as a group or a single. It's just the signature and the fee waiver will be not present.
Yeah, and I think it seemed useful to have the fee waiver because we were trying to support kind of this neighborhood autonomy and things like that. And that way they didn't have to figure out how to divide up that fee, or if one person was just taking it for the entire group. Anyway, I'm with Travis on this one.
Whoa, let me write that down. I got a pen.
I'll make a motion repealing the entirety of 143040.
I'll second that.
Discussion? Additional discussion?
Do we have a sense of how much staff time it takes to go through the text ordinance, or what map ordinance text amendment process, as opposed to going through the previous administrative permitting process?
Bill and Scott might be better to answer that, but I think the difference would be if you go through the ordinance non-administrative process, then it's going to have to go to planning commission, which involves staff reports, report of action, the actual planning commission meeting, and then a council work meeting and a council night meeting, including the public hearings and neighborhood meetings at which the application is heard.
Now, there were 2 hours of comment. Right?
Whereas the administrative process, all the back end stuff's the same. You just don't have all the public facing.
Public process 2 months fastest possible. Administrative weeks.
Okay, other comments or questions, discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote on the motion. Councillor Bogdan?
Yes.
Councillor Hoban?
Yeah. Yes.
Councillor Garrett, yes. Councillor Whipple?
Yes.
Councillor McKay?
Yes.
And Councillor Christensen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
Councillor Handley?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Next one, this is kind of a cleanup that Brian brought to us, which will be helpful. Is just amending the map title and remove the designated area labels. So this is just a kind of a code cleanup thing. Our map currently in code, it hasn't confused anyone yet, but it might. It says, if you can see up here, okay, well, it says R16 and R18 areas permitted ADUs, but the applications we have right now are R10 areas. Yeah. And then these labels here say R16, R18, and so it's just kind of confusing. So our recommendation is to just change the title of this map to something that legal approves, that is more vague about a map that has designated ADU parcels or properties.
Do we have to have that specific, Brian, before we vote on it?
No, I think if a motion to have us, I mean, because we're gonna come back to you with.
Yeah.
We're gonna go through planning commission and then come back to you with a text amendment. So we're just getting, all the motion needs to say is you're in favor of doing that.
He feels confident. He's big.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I feel confident being vague and saying I make a motion that we change the name of this map to whatever legal decides to name it.
Perfect.
Whatever.
The
Brian Jones.
The Leah Daily Memorial ADU.
Still have to, once they.
Yeah, it'll still go to planning commission and then come back to us. Yes.
I would say.
Okay, a motion by Counselor Bogdan with a second by Counselor Christensen. Any discussion?
And the motion is that legal will do the research to come up with an appropriate title.
Yes.
Okay.
Counselor Hoban?
Yes.
Counselor Garrett, yes. Counselor Rupel?
Yes.
Counselor McKay?
Yes.
Counselor Christensen? Counselor Hanley?
Yes.
Counselor Bogdan?
Yes.
Okay, and just one note on the map before we go to the last one, which hopefully will be quick. This is just kind of educational because this is something I talk a lot about in neighborhood meetings when people ask about ADUs. Is why the map exists and why not just list zones? It's something Planning Commission has asked a number of times as well. The map exists because it is a leftover of the old city code where there was an A and an S overlay. And additionally, we don't just list zones because when writing 1430 originally, the council wanted to keep these R16 and R18 and not rezone them to higher density zones that allow ADUs. And so that's why the map exists.
Okay.
Yes.
Quick question. So the ADU overlay map covers more properties than what's shown on this map?
The one on GIS?
Yes.
Yes, because the one on GIS also includes zones, the listed zones that allow ADUs, as well as residential, primarily residential zones on the west of I-15.
Yeah.
So that overlay on GIS is more extensive than this map, so that's also confusing.
So do we have published anywhere a comprehensive map that shows where ADUs can be? Because this is not, and that creates
Yes,
confusion.
the GIS overlay has one, and Grace made us one at the beginning of this year, so I can get that and send that.
I'm just wondering about it being easily accessible to the public.
We can make it, that is a good point. I'll make note of that and we can put it somewhere.
Okay.
Because almost every one of these requests also seems to be related to some misunderstanding about what was allowed. I don't know if that was partly because our laws were changing, that obviously is a factor, but.
So if I may, there are GIS maps available to the public that have the overlays that they can click on to see this information. So I'll have to play around with the public versions to see how easy it is to see all of the ADU areas, but there are maps available to the public to click through and see different areas and see.
And how would you find that, Scott?
I believe it's maps.provo.gov.
So, I mean, how would I know nothing about city government, I just know I need to find out. I'd go to the website.
Go to the website and there's a search bar or there's a drop down. You can say, I want to, and there's a lot of different things you can look for. But if you look, you can type in maps and it should pull up where all of our maps are that are available to the public.
Craig asked Ava. Ava would be able to pull it up.
There you go.
AI is telling me all the information I need right here.
Ava's cooler.
I just said, are ADUs allowed in Provo? And
All right, last one. This one, we didn't discuss in the actual work meeting discussion, but counselors did ask me about it, in between meetings. And after meeting with legal and development services, there's no current recommendation to amend or change anything. This is regarding the temporary absence found in 1430. So owner occupancy of an ADU is not required when someone has submitted a temporary absence application prior to the beginning of their temporary absence. So, and Brian's gonna have to step in because I got confused during this discussion. So what that means is, so say I have an ADU and someone's renting out my basement. I know I'm going to leave for a year to go somewhere. And so if I submit an application to the city before and say, I still want to keep my ADU, but I'm going to be gone. So technically it's not owner occupied, but can I still keep my ADU and rent out the top or keep the top empty? Then the city will say yes. So then the house I could rent out the part where I was living so it would become a duplex, or leave the part where I was living empty until I come back. If I submit that application after I leave, I'm not allowed to keep my ADU and the ADU goes away. And then I can rent my house as a single rental dwelling, as one single house, but not as two separate rental units.
And this is a 3-year max, right?
Yes. So there's no recommendation on that, but counselors just asked for us to review it generally. So we did, and after discussion, there was no recommendation. So unless council has a recommendation, I know this is the first time you're seeing this, but if you have a recommendation on it, then we can go ahead with a motion. But if not, then staff is good with how it is.
yeah, I brought this up. I had a conversation with Scott because a colleague of mine was on assignment out of country. Didn't know at the time that it was going to turn into a much longer period of absence, and then, you know, lost the ability to rent out the ADU. You know, so I don't know if there's a more adequate fix to something like that. Maybe that's such a rare thing that it's not worth
Even
creating
so,
labyrinthine rules to correct, but it seemed like the spirit of it would have said, yeah, you can do this, but the letter said no, so they lost it.
well, it seems like though, I mean, how much does it cost to do this? Is it like a $5 fee? Is it a $20 fee? Is it a $200 fee?
There's no fee for the temporary leave of absence application process.
So see, if there's no fee for it, if you're gonna leave the country for.
No, what I'm saying is that they didn't know they were gonna be gone long enough that they were gonna need to require, anyway, I don't know if it was a matter of them not understanding what their requirements were. But they didn't know that they were gonna be on permanent assignment that was gonna take them out. So at that point, it was too late to apply.
Well, right, but still, I mean. What's the leave of absence? Is it 3 months? Is it a month? Is it a year? I mean, to me, if I knew this and I knew it was free, it doesn't cost them anything to apply, even if they're gonna be gone for a month, right? And then if it extends to 3 years, props. But if it was a $200 fee, I'd be more concerned.
We had a pretty spirited, well, it's not really about the fee, it's about the fact that it's a question of, if you don't apply on time, if you don't apply before you leave, you cannot get approved no matter when you apply later. And we had a pretty long discussion about this in the working group about, we can all envision circumstances where that doesn't seem completely fair. We can envision that there are people that didn't know about the requirement until after they were already gone, or circumstances changed after they left. The counterpoint to that was, we can think of ways, if we take this out, that people could start to abuse the process. Nobody applies until they get caught, because now there's no requirement to apply beforehand. And Scott expressed the opinion, he can speak for himself, but he expressed the opinion that having the pre-application in there was a valuable tool from his perspective for enforcement. And so at the end of the day, we said, if the council feels differently, of course, they can decide differently, but we don't have a recommendation because we can see both sides of it.
You summed up my thoughts exactly.
Well, sorry, I keep doing that and not letting them speak. So
Oh, you're great.
It seems like this would be few and far between. And even in the few and far between, if it was me and I wanted to be gone for 18 months doing something, and if I follow these rules, I like the idea of being able to hold on to that. So I like the pre application. I like that idea. And I also do like the idea of those people who have some bona fide temporary absence, school, church, whatever that might be. Work assignment seems reasonable to me.
So what happens when someone's in the hospital, they didn't apply? Are they out?
They might lose their ADU and the ability to rent it out as two separate units. They could rent their whole home as one unit or just leave one of the two units empty.
I just think that sounds unfair. And I don't know why we can't just have a little clause in there that says you can appeal. I don't know, if you're hospitalized, and this colleague of mine, everything happened so fast, she didn't have time.
Yeah, I mean, I can see
to
going-
even think of these things, but if you're hospitalized, of course, you're not gonna have time to think of these things. Why would you not be able to apply later?
Or even just taking a temporary work assignment and then they like you so much, so they're like, hey, we want you to stay on for another year or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So any decision made by the city administration can be appealed to the Board of Adjustments.
Right.
So there is an appeal process. If somebody feels like we've, denied it in error, they can appeal that.
I'd also say that, in that specific instance, and maybe we're getting too far down into the details, trying to envision every scenario, so this isn't helpful, but I don't think the city is gonna say, somebody has a heart attack and goes to the hospital, we're not gonna say, oh, you don't live there anymore, right? We're not in that sort, it's more about the, you have actually moved out of the home because now you've been placed in a nursing facility and you need to apply before you actually vacate the home for somebody to take over the main floor.
Okay, well, but that language is confusing though. The owner is placed in a hospital. I mean.
Right, but you have to read it in the entire context of the
Yeah,
fact that
because
we're
it's
talking about,
it's an exception.
we're talking about owner occupancy and the fact that we're talking about an evaluation of whether they.
This is an exception of owner occupancy, but it still requires the prior application. And that sounds weird to me to say, you have to have applied prior to being in the hospital. That just sounds nonsensical.
But if you look though, in ADU, the very definition of it is homeowner occupied. I mean, and like you said, there's nothing preventing it. I mean, if you're just looking at just the loss of the income of renting half of your house, then you just rent out the whole house and problem solved. But the other thing would be, okay, you're just renting out half of it. So you can still rent out half of it and just say you're renting the whole house and apply for an RDL, right? Is that okay?
I'm just saying, I don't think the prior the application prior to beginning a temporary absence in hospital, that sounds bizarre and cruel. So I don't think it should be there. And if you're in the hospital and you have to make arrangements, and especially if you're in the hospital, why would we punish somebody economically? I don't know.
You guys have leeway, right?
Why can't we give them flexibility?
Well, and I think that's my point, George. I think we have the flexibility. We have flexibility in how we interpret the ordinance. And I agree with you that the way you're interpreting the ordinance is ridiculous. I'm saying, I don't think that's the only interpretation. I'm saying, trust us to not interpret it in a ridiculous way.
Stop his leeway on his enforcement.
But I don't have any strong objection to trying to clarify. If that's the specific scenario that you think needs clarification, we can certainly work on some wording to clarify that so it's not subject to that interpretation.
Am I wrong, Scott? Do you have some?
I do have leeway. I mean, it's an administrative process that I have leeway to determine. I do look closely at the the letter of the law, the text of the language when I review things. And so from my perspective, I think it might be helpful to have some clarification if the council doesn't want it to be a hard, fast rule that regardless of the reason for you leaving the property, you have to apply before you leave. You had a heart attack, sorry, you're in the hospital now. If the council doesn't want that to be a scenario in the letter of the law.
That's what I'm suggesting. I would just strike
If
place.
we were able to verify for, like, if someone were to say, I had a heart attack, I'm in the hospital, I'm gonna be there longer than expected because of health issues, they'll say, great, we're gonna approve your temporary leave of absence.
See, I don't think that somebody who has fallen and broken a hip, go to the hospital, and then they get put in assisted living facility against their will is going to think, I need to do this administrative process with the city. They and the people who are taking care of them, or if somebody's got, you know, a power of attorney or something, this is not on top of their mind. And if they've already been renting out the ADU, and you know that the nice old lady who lived upstairs got in the hospital, even as a resident of the ADU, you're not going to know that your home is now jeopardized because they haven't applied for this. And it may be that they will only find out if there's an enforcement action where they are all in the wrong.
And then at that point, they can't fix it. That was exactly the scenario that we debated.
Yeah.
But couldn't they just apply for an RDL and still keep that basement?
Well, they would already be renting it out. There's
They-
already an RDL.
Yeah.
For the ADU if it's already being rented.
But couldn't they just, wouldn't at that point, couldn't they just say it's a whole house even though they're just renting?
But it may be that
Yes.
not all of the owner occupants are in the facility.
But then it changes, right? So it's not an ADU, it's a rental.
Well,
That's an interesting question about that. Now there's no owner occupancy because I don't know, we even discussed that about the multiple owners
We
scenario.
didn't discuss that scenario.
That's I think a different question, and I think that scenario that we haven't thought through. But to your point, Councilor Pike, if we stick to the more easily understood, there's only one owner scenario, then yes, they're not going to lose, if they've already got renters, the result of this situation is not going to be that they have to kick out the renters. The result is they will not be allowed to add more renters to the part of the house that they lived in.
yes.
That's what I agree with.
Well, I'm so sorry that this is bogging down, but I don't, so D, the line says owner occupancy shall not be required when the owner has submitted a temporary absence application prior to
Right,
any of these
right,
things.
but owner
So
occupancy.
if I didn't submit the prior application and I'm in the hospital, my neighbor could say, your house isn't owner occupied and so you don't meet that qualification because you didn't put in the application.
Correct, and so you can't have a duplex. But the RDL provision doesn't say that.
So I'm not gonna lose my
You're
rent.
not gonna lose the already existing rental. You only lose the ability to add additional renters to your part of the house.
Well, okay, I mean, I still would rather there be more flexibility but if I'm alone in that, that's fine. I don't wanna.
See
bog
that
this
if
down.
you are now in a facility that is very expensive, you probably
That's-
may need to
yeah.
rent out the other part of your house to pay for your care at the new place.
I'm not for that.
Okay.
And that seems like the very reason we would wanna be flexible.
To me, that's opening the doors up to duplexes. And that completely does not, an ADU should be a homeowner occupied.
Quick question for Scott, and maybe you've got these offhand. How many of these permits were submitted last year? And maybe specific to the hospital question, how many in that category?
I don't recall in the 10 years that I've worked for this, nearly 10 years that I've worked for the city, it's been for the purpose of a hospital. I would say the majority are from either a work assignment or a service assignment. And over the past year, I would say we've maybe had a small handful, less than a dozen. So it's not very often that we receive these. I would say, and thinking of it, they're not all in conjunction with an ADU. So if we're specifically talking about temporary absence in conjunction with an ADU, maybe a handful.
I'm not looking for a motion on this, so we don't need to get to a point of a motion. It was just something that was asked to review. So if there's no motion, I'm done.
Okay, well, thank you, Malia. It's helpful to engage in this discussion and get closer to resolution.
So those other two motions, we
Yes.
will draft and we'll take them to planning commission and then they will come back to a work meeting probably in November.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Malia. Next, we have a resolution approving the appropriation of $158,396 to add 3 full-time firefighters for the airport for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2026. Presented by Airport Director Brian Torgerson and Fire Chief Edmund. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. Council, thank you for this opportunity to be here. First, want to start with just a big shout out to our fire department. Holy smokes, what a ride it's been the last 3 years. And these guys have been with us 100% of the time and been very flexible, very accommodating. And this proposal that we're going to present today is just another step in that growth process, and one that both Chief Hedman and I are in full alignment on as we continue to evolve at the airport. So just a real quick snapshot of what's going on at the airport. You've all seen that graph where immediately after opening the terminal, we just exploded. Those trends have slowed, but we're still seeing 40% growth year over year. And so we hit a record in July of most passengers through our building, 103, almost 104,000 passengers in the month of July. August is seasonally terrible for passengers, but we still saw 40% over last year in August. So things are continuing to increase. We're really excited about some more announcements that Breeze has made, expanding their West Coast operation, which will further increase operations at our airport, which is driving some of the need for today's proposal. You've all seen this before. It's my pride and joy, my prettiest slide that an engineer can come up with zero artistic talent. So this is just a demonstration again. If we're talking ARF index, that's essentially a level of firefighting coverage that we're required to maintain at the airport. It's kind of a weird metric. Again, it's based off length of aircraft. So currently, up to this point, we've been operating under an Index B requirement with the FAA, which has required 1 vehicle, 2 firefighters to be present there, and really only present when flight operations are occurring. With Breeze's continued expansion, we are finally to where we've been saying we're getting. Beginning January 1st, we will be required to provide ARF Index C staffing, which requires 2 vehicles, 2 firefighters, with response times regulated by the FAA. So the way we've actually been operating this way, just because we're pretty much a 24/7, maybe a 21/7 operation. So our firefighters, they actually get to leave and maybe run to Wendy's or whatever and grab a drink or whatever they might, but it's for a pretty short time where we don't have ARF coverage at the airport. So we've been operating pretty much as Index C, but now we're required to have constant presence at the airport. Our firefighters can't leave the airport at any time under Index C. Without publishing the fact that they are leaving, then aircraft can't land. Anyway, so that requirement definitely becomes a little bit more stringent beginning January 1st. So currently, I think we've shared this before. The way we've been handling ARF staffing is we have 3 full-time fire captains stationed at the airport. Then that second position has been our own airport operations staff. We've done some cross training where they're also ARF certified. You can see a couple pictures here of our airport operations staff going through that training and getting certified. And so our airport operations staff is covering Monday through Thursday and even sometimes Friday, that second position along with our full-time fire captains. For Chief Hedman and Chief Anderson, that is a dance, trying to coordinate two departments, different schedules, and maintaining that. And again, just huge thanks to Chief Hedman and Chief Anderson. They schedule that. They gladly, well, I don't know if it's gladly, but they have agreed kindly to make sure that we're meeting all of those requirements. That also leads to issues operationally for the airport staff. I think the last time we came and presented to this body, we were showing a need for 5 full-time operations staff to be where we should be. And some of that is because of our obligation, the way we've chosen to staff the ARF. So again, the proposed ARF staffing here moving forward is to eliminate the airport operations staff part of that, and provide full-time firefighters that are stationed solely at the airport. In order to do that, we keep our full-time fire captains that are really the experts and training and experience and all of those things. And then the proposal is to add 3 full-time firefighters to be there in that second position. And I'm going to let Chief Hedman go through some of the advantages to that, at least on the fire side. The first bullet point of that gives me 2.5 full-time employee equivalents back in operations. So for the airport side, that's a huge advantage. That gets our staffing level right. We're pretty comfortable at that point where we won't have to ask for additional employees because we're getting those 2.5 back. But I want to let Chief kind of describe the benefits on the firefighting side.
Right. So as Brian said, we have a great relationship with the airport, and we love working alongside your people, but we also look forward to having a full-time fire department at the airport and not trying to schedule operations people, and the other people we're scheduling are on overtime. And so by dedicating 3 full-time additional firefighters there, what we'll have is people that not only know more about airport firefighting, they'll understand the aircraft they're dealing with. They'll have a great understanding of the layout and how to drive. I mean, just even driving through the airport is complicated. You have to have permission to cross different lines from the tower before you proceed. And quite honestly, the guys up at Station 2 that are filling overtime positions have to relearn that every now and then when they go out there, because they're not out there regularly, where if we have a full-time firefighter, they're going to be very familiar. The big benefit for me, one of the big benefits is schedule. We can consistently have 24-hour coverage, which works with the rest of the fire department calendar, because we work a 48-96 schedule, which means that we have 3 shifts, which is why we need 3 firefighters, 1 for each shift. And having the 3 different shifts fully covered, it reduces a lot of the complexity of the staffing and not a whole lot in the cost of the operation. There is some cost, which we'll talk about. So we're requesting the 158 and 396 to come from the airport's budget, which was over. Maybe I'll let Brian get into that a little more later, but part of that $158,000 is not all staffing. We also need to equip these 3 new firefighters. So about 36,000 of that or so is equipping them with all the firefighter tools they need, PPE, uniforms, radios, all that stuff. And then training. We need to get them some additional fire training. And then the remainder would be for the difference to cover the staffing. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
So as far as funding goes, we're pretty proud of this at the airport. The airport has been self-sufficient now for since we built the new terminal. That won't change. The proposal is for this to be funded out of the airport operation fund, which had a $1.1 million revenue surplus in FY25. That's dropped into fund balance. We're requesting that 158,000 and change be appropriated from fund balance. And Jimmy knows the details of where it's appropriated to. Jimmy, if there are questions on that, whether it goes to the fire fund, and then I think we do an inter-office adjustment that comes from the airport to the fire department. Anyway, there's some bookkeeping on the back end of that, but we're pretty proud of that 1.1 million budget or revenue surplus, and maybe even just as proud of that 65,000 that we underspent in our budget by doing some of this joint work together with the fire department and other ways. So, and again, we anticipate that revenue will continue at its current level and even increase. So even though we were great this year, I expect that we'll be just as great in FY26. So with that, I think we'll take any questions that there might be. Councilor Bogdan.
Mr. Valbrand, thank you for covering this, doing such a good job managing it so self-sufficient. Do you envision that these 3 firefighters stay there all the time, or do you envision it like a COP thing where they have like a 4-year rotation that they can go ahead and rotate some of them through? So it's different, something different.
Yeah. So right now we do a bid every 2 years. And so the commitment for our captains out there has been a 2-year commitment for them to stay there. The firefighters, I'm actually looking at more like a year-long commitment to keep them rotated. One of my concerns is to be proficient as a firefighter, you need to be running emergency calls. And quite honestly, fortunately, our airport doesn't have a ton of emergencies. So we want to rotate them so that we keep them proficient. We don't want anybody to get out there and not be really good at EMS and fire related skills. So there will be a rotation.
So how much more, because you mentioned additional training, how much more will this cost us a year if we rotate through every year to train them on whatever
we're already, so every 2 years we already have a budget and plan on training our captains. So it'd just be the additional 3, and the cost of that's about $16,000 a year.
And I will say that's training that currently either every firefight, a large number of firefighters are having to receive because we're covering it with overtime, as well as airport operations having to receive that same training every year. So this actually reduces the training amount that is required.
So you're saying like in next year's budget, now that we're going to have this set up, we could actually be spending money someplace else instead of in training every year? Potentially.
Again, it reduces the number of firefighters in airport operations that would have to receive that recurrent training. Now, obviously, Chief's we need to maintain a level. We still have vacations and sickness and all that stuff where he's going to have to try and, this doesn't eliminate overtime, but it definitely reduces it to just some of those vacations and sick time. And
he'll probably have to cross-train 3 extra people, so we'll have 6 people just in case 3 are sick.
Yeah, and probably more than that in order to, because if I had just 3 extra people trained and those 3 were off and the other 3 were off, I don't have anybody. So the depth is important. So we would have a few, I would like to keep more like 18 trained firefighters, but we do this, most of this is in-house training. And then we bring in a prop every year and it costs X amount of money to bring it in anyway. So it's not a ton of additional training to keep my people trained. What's more difficult is to train new people that have none, because then they got to go to a 40-hour class.
Oh, okay. So do you see people that are already trained that we're just trying to keep up on the training, filling those 3 spots?
Possibly. I can't say that I know for fact who's going to fill in those roles in a year from now, or even in 3 months from now, because we're going to have to hire and then we'll fill in those spots. And some of those may already have the training and not need to go to a 40-hour class, and others may need it. So
And we pay for that, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hey, I seem to recall, did we do a little firehouse? Do we have accommodations for you at the airport that are appropriate?
We do. So actually, it's even gonna get better with the construction of our snow removal equipment building. Right now, we're sharing our snow removal equipment storage with our fire truck storage. And not only that, our firefighter captains are living in the offices of our operations staff. So with the completion of the snow removal equipment building, our operations staff and equipment will move out of that building, leaving that to be a fire station completely.
That will be.
Oh, okay.
It will need some remodeling at some point to make it more of a 24-hour facility versus an office.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Do you have the 24-hour facility? Like, is it?
We are currently making it work, but it's not
We
ideal.
need, so what's the ETA on that? Cause that isn't it. You need to sleep well and you need a.
So we, on the SRE building's under construction, so we're at footings and foundation being installed now. It won't be completed until July, August of next year. So it's another 12 months of making do.
We've been making do like this for quite some time, so it's not ideal, but it's not horrible either. So they have to.
So you'd have to wait till next year, August, and then do a remodel of the other, which would take how long?
Months.
Months,
It's
yeah.
not years for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we've already done some work. We've done some work to the kitchen. We've done some work to the bathroom to make sure it has showers.
Okay.
We just need to remodel some office spaces to make them something more livable for sleeping and stuff like that.
Well, it's nice that you're not using the hose outside anymore. That's a step in the right direction. I applaud the focus in terms of safety. That's worth doing this. I think I'm most excited about what the additional FTEs will do for the airport. They're so incredibly stretched. You guys are doing remarkable work. And not to have to be doing runway operations and then air traffic control, and then put on your fire hat and then bake cookies in the evening for passengers coming through on the Million Miler. You're just so incredibly stretched. I love the additional focus. I think that's really going to help us as we grow this airport. So I'm very supportive of this.
Thank you.
One more question. I just want to clarify. Are you getting money to hire 3 completely new fire people? From like, you're gonna up your overall fireman numbers, or are you just transferring them to?
We have to hire 3 more to fill the positions.
Good, okay.
So the 3 new hires won't go to the airport. They'll go into the fire department somewhere, and then we'll put some trained firefighters at the airport.
Okay, thank you.
And I just was curious about the number, the 158 or something. Is that really enough for 3 full-time employees and the equipment and the training?
It is
felt
because
low.
we have some money budgeted already for overtime.
Oh, and we'll
So-
be spending less on overtime once we have this. So that doesn't actually reflect the full cost of 3
It
FTE.
does
That
not.
is already adjusted through other savings.
Correct.
Okay, I feel better about that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I had the same thought. Seemed like.
Yeah, it seemed
We pay our
too low.
firefighters next time.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful, because I want to be sure that we're appropriating or moving out from the fund balance the right amount for you.
Appreciate that.
Thank you very
Anything
much,
else?
Brian and Chief
Yep.
Edmund. We anticipate this will come to the council for a vote in 2 weeks.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
All right, Thank you. Thank you. We'll take a brief break and reconvene at 3:40.
Okay.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
All right. Thank you. Our next agenda item is a presentation regarding the fiscal year 2025 budget carryover report. This will be presented by our budget analyst, Andrea Wright. Welcome, Andrea.
Good afternoon. So,
This is just our annual going through the carryover process at the end of the fiscal year. Here's kind of the process is after all the purchases happen, there's still projects that are still open that we go ahead and do requests for carryovers, or there's projects that weren't able to take place that they want to request the carryovers for the next year. Then we compile the list and review the carryover list. Then we present it to the mayor and she goes through her approvals. In your packets, you all received a simplified version of all the carryover requests. Here's kind of just a key legend on what the different coloring means. In the budget ordinance, there's certain carryovers that are just automatically, that happens. They're also listed on your list in the purple color, I believe it is. And then once we get done with all of the carryovers, we actually look and see what our budget savings are at the end of it. And we review that with the council. Mainly because it's in the budget ordinance to review it for the disaster recovery fund. And when that was discussed with John, I believe it was June, it was decided that the council still wanted to review the dollar amount and see if they wanted to go ahead and put the available amount in the disaster recovery fund or have it drop the fund balance. Was that a discussion that we can have right now to make that decision right now?
Is that, I get confused, is that the state's disaster recovery or is this our own fund?
State.
The state's.
Yes.
And we talked about how that's very narrow in terms of its application. And we talked about something that's actually has more flexibility in how this city would decide to use that fund.
Right, if it goes to the general fund, I think it does have less restrictions on its use. We're still going to the council for appropriation, but less outside our organization restriction.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Any other discussion on Andrea's question relative to the options for that carryover?
Are we wanting to move that to the disaster recovery fund that's like the PTIF? Or are we wanting that to just drop to the general fund balance?
I was just asking Justin about that. I thought that the budget ordinance removed the requirement to drop it. And I think
it's not a requirement. They just wanted to review it every year and have that opportunity to review it.
Okay, Councilor Bogdan.
Andrea, what is the balance in the fund?
Currently, it's at $1,859,378.
Okay, say that again. 1,800,000.
$859,378.
And what 370? And what is the maximum that we can have in that?
I don't know if there's a maximum.
Becky, were you talking about the total in the general fund balance or?
No.
Or you're talking about it?
There's no
disaster fund?
There's, as I recall from the statute, I think there's a maximum about how much you can put in each year, but I don't think there's a cap on the entire balance.
And we can only use it for like earthquake specifics.
Well, we can use it for actual emergency response. There's also a percentage, I believe, that we can use for emergency education, emergency prevention stuff. The whole main reason to have it in there is to qualify for state matching funds.
And we have plenty in there to qualify for state matching.
Well, I mean, we have enough. We have enough if you only need 1.8 million in matching funds.
Well, we have more than anybody else, right? Did we use any of it for the mudslide? Did we, or was it not eligible, or?
We have not worked on any of that building or anything yet because it's in the national forest. So we didn't have to yet. So we'll see.
What the national forest things for?
Because the fire happened up in the national forest. So yeah, we have to do our codes up. You were there, George, where we were asking people to log their hours of volunteerism so that at least we have that ready to go in case they say, well, Provo, you have to pay X amount of this. But it was just more of a precaution because we learned FEMA training that we need to log all our hours just to keep. So we can send those in for reimbursement if we need that.
I forgot to.
Or I had them everywhere, on trees, on shovels, like, log your hours.
Okay, so are we expecting to have to use that then?
I don't think, not at this point, we have not heard anything.
Okay.
Dan, you were doing some research because you did a lot of tracking on this. I think Dan Follett might be able to tell us if it is moving towards that direction. Seems like just yesterday that we were all moving mud together.
Yeah, we're still, let's see, is this on or not?
I don't think so.
Just gotta.
Yeah, we are still working with legal right now in terms of how we can use it and when we can use it. And we're still also collecting the data. The day of the incident of the mudslide, we put a job code out there for everyone to track their expenses. And we also provided a workday code so that personnel costs can be tracked. And that's still in process at this point in time. I don't have final numbers right now.
Okay, so thank you. So that $1,114,259.46. That is currently the general fund balance right now.
That's currently the disaster recovery fund, and it actually is accruing interest.
Oh, that is.
So is this the state one or is this ours that we can?
This is the
35%?
state one.
Okay, so that one's.
I do think we're getting
Confused.
confused.
Yeah.
The number you read off, Becky, was the general fund surplus available, wasn't it?
Yeah, that one on the bottom.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
But we're
Yes,
getting them confused, Andrea.
Yeah,
One is
sorry, I
state,
apologize.
one is
So
ours.
we have the payroll turnover. This is in excess of the payroll turnover that what we had. So that's additional savings from the payroll turnover. Then there's the operating budget savings after carryover from just general fund, which gives us the general fund surplus from what was budgeted in FY25 of $1,114,259.46. In the budget ordinance, it says that we are allowed to put up to 200,000 in both the employee recognition and innovation fund. And then after that number, we can put up to 20% into the local the local government disaster fund. And that's the dollar amount that's available after doing all that. And then if we did, which I know that the last discussion of it is we wouldn't continue to add to that fund, then the balance that we would be adding to fund balance after FY25 would be $569,407.57.
So that means that our general fund surplus available will jump up to 1,600,000 some odd thousand, roughly estimated, right?
No, if we don't do the disaster recovery, it'll be that 569,000 plus the 144,000. That'll drop down to fund balance to help replenish our fund balance.
The 570 at the bottom comes from subtracting the two numbers above it from the 1.1 million. It's a ledger all the way down from the top to the bottom.
Yes.
Okay. So we would have 569,407. But it says general fund balance added. So it's I'm reading this as it's added to something.
To the general.
We will add it to the general fund from what was budgeted in FY25, taking away all of the expenses, all of the carryovers, and adding the innovation fund. If we added the government disaster fund, then we will be adding 569,000 from what was budgeted in FY25 back to general fund balance.
Okay, so if I'm understanding this right, after we pay everything that we have budgeted this year, we will have about $570,000 that we have as a slush fund that we can appropriate to whatever we need to if we need to, or is there more than that?
The 714.
Well,
that's not the general fund. Sorry, go ahead. What did you say? That's not the general fund balance. It's adding to the general fund balance.
That's what okay. So,
yes.
So okay. But my original question is what after we have the general fund, so it's on account, right? We have all these expenses coming out of it, going to wherever, all these general fund balance things, right?
Right.
At the end of the day, if we, let's say tomorrow,
we paid everything and we come to the end, or even at the end of the fiscal year, how much is in that account?
So we
Our
are
balance
at
minus
the-
expenses.
We are at the end of fiscal year 25. We're
Okay.
currently closing it up. This is part of our audit process that we have. We do the carryover request and get all of that done. Then our auditors are actually showing up next week. So this is giving you the numbers from fiscal year 25, which is July 1, 2024 to June 30th, 2025.
So Andrew, I think the question is, what's the general fund balance right now before you add that $570,000 to that?
No.
No,
No.
that's the emergency. What's the general fund balance? What's in the general fund?
So the last audited percentage was 32%.
But what's the raw number?
Do you know the dollar amount off the top of your head, Kels?
I don't want to be misquote. I think 14 million-ish,
Okay,
but then we would be adding more. But then also, you have to think we had other things come in and out of the general fund throughout the year. So as we wrap up the audit, we'll have like the exact numbers for you. That's presented in December, but we should probably have a better estimate in the next few weeks.
I just want an estimate, what that is, and that 14 million includes this 570,000. Okay.
We'll get that stuff. But it is still being formulated because we've been making final country stuff.
Thank you. Are we still really close to our max?
Yeah, I calculated, so I didn't have the exact number, but I was looking at the rough. I'm sorry. Yes, but thank you. Thank you. So in terms of the exact number of what's available,
Okay, let's start. So in terms of the exact number, we're like reaching that calculation, and I was just pulling our revenues and comparing that to what was in the fund balance in general, and it looks like we'll probably still be about the 32% range is what we were last year. I don't think we deviate too far from that based on our preliminary numbers. I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head, and I think what I said earlier was in the low ball range, so.
So 35% is all we're allowed to carry.
35% is the maximum the state allows for us to have in fund balance. 25% is the minimum, I believe, and so 32%. I think we were at 32.9% last year is what our fund balance was, and I think we'll be in that range again this year based on early numbers.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know, because I mean, if we're looking at almost $145,000 going to another place rather than just sitting in the general fund balance, I have no problem with that if we're that high. 32% is pretty high.
So real quick, I just pulled it back from 24. And so we were at approximately 32%, which was $30.7 million in general fund balance. So So if you weren't going to appropriate the 145,000 to the disaster relief fund, and we're going to add it to the general fund balance, added approximately 700,000. That would go towards this percentage, plus or minus what has happened during this last fiscal year, and we'll have an audited amount in the next couple of months after the audit's completed.
So are you needing a decision on the government disaster fund?
Yes.
Okay, I would propose we do not, we keep that in our pocket.
Well, the other thing we could do,
Yeah.
the other thing we could do is appropriate that to a dog park.
That's a different.
And that'll be a different
Yeah,
discussion.
I mean, that we can always do.
But if it's in the disaster recovery fund, you can't.
I know.
So is that a motion?
I'll make that
Councilor?
motion that we do not allocate or appropriate the local government disaster fund amount of approximately 145,000 and leave that in our general fund instead.
Okay, great. Thank you, Councilor Henley. Is there a second?
Second one.
Councilor, a second by Councilor Whipple. And so we'll vote. Councilor Whipple,
Yes.
Councilor McKay,
Yes.
Counselor Christensen.
Yes.
Counselor Hanley.
Yes.
Counselor Bogdan.
Yes.
Counselor Hogan.
Yes.
And Counselor Garrett, yes. So that
Perfect.
vote, that passes by a motion by a vote of 7-0. Yes. Don.
I think one thing, now that we got lost in the disaster fund for a while here, just want to note the great management of our different departments, that even in a very tight budget, which every budget is tight budget, still turned back over, $1 million of finding efficiencies within their departments and going through this process and be able to bring this to the finish line, even with what you would consider some revenue reporting uncertainties, that they work through that. So I think it's commendable both to our financial team and our department management that a positive budget finishing with a contribution to our savings account is a good way to finish a fiscal year.
Agreed. Thank you, Scott.
And also recognize that how well our payroll turnover is doing. It's actually our first full year of implementing it, and I feel like we're pretty close to the number. So that was a wonderful move. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Andrea.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final agenda item is a presentation regarding the dog park master plan and its implementation strategy. I'm going to present that. Okay. That will be presented by Parks and Grounds Superintendent James Cornaby.
All right, thank you. And good afternoon. So to sake of time, we'll try to go quickly here, but you all know me. I've invited a representative from Blue Line Design, our consulting team. Brent Potter will be here with us. He'll be taking a portion of this, but I think everybody, as part of this materials we submitted a draft of our master plan document. So if you've had time to go through that, thank you. But quickly today, we'll go through some of these things. I know this will be a quick recap. We'll just hit the wave tops here, but our objectives throughout this process was really to engage our community, to understand what their needs were and how we could meet those needs. That aligned with the current level of standard in our current Parks and Recreation Master Plan of 1 dog park per 30,000 residents. We wanted those evenly distributed throughout town, and our objective now is to recommend a path moving forward with some of the options that we'll talk about a little bit later from an implementation strategy. This was just coming out of the statistically valid survey, found that 58% of our current residents own a dog. The top features that were as of highest importance to them were fenced areas, shade, water for both the user and for the pets, and waste collection. Their major concerns were aggressive pets, inattentive owners, and the lack of maintenance, which falls on, for us to manage that effectively. Some of these implementation principles, they were community driven. Obviously, we wanted to make sure that they were equitable. Sometimes the loud voice is heard the most, but we wanted to make sure that we were managing that in the most effective way and appropriately. Some of the things that we obviously have to consider that maybe the general public is less aware of is what our cost restraints are and effective use of city land and resources that are there. Obviously prioritizing currently owned, city-owned properties before going out and purchasing others. And then a big thing that we were looking at is making sure that we had consistent standards, both from a safety, accessibility standpoint, from a usability standpoint with some of those. And that fell into our selection criteria process, which we can talk about a little bit later as well. So today, when we get to this point, I'm going to turn some time over to Brent here to talk about some of our options for implementation strategy. And we're really looking to get some consensus and direction from the team here today so that we can plan for future, capital improvement funding strategies and things of that nature to make sure that we're aligning our priorities with yours. So that being said, I'll turn some time to Brent to talk about these implementation strategies.
Thank you, James. So you'll see between this slide and the next slide, we really have two options that Blue Line Designs is suggesting we proceed with. The first option, knowing that there is some budget already allocated or ready to be used, is to bite off some lower hanging fruit, try to spread the money as well as we can. With that idea, we feel as if there are two potential sites that could be built within the current budget. If that's not necessarily the direction that the city would like to go, there are other options for biting off smaller chunks of phasing other projects or other sites. So the two that we have chosen for what we think would be the easier of the decision making would be the Raw Dog Park or the Rock Canyon Dog Park, as they are the smaller of the 5 sites that were selected throughout the process, and the least expensive to implement a new park. The other option is to basically go all in, try to implement a strategy that emphasizes a large regional dog park. So this is the site off of Lakeview Parkway. It is the largest site and it is the most expensive. With this site, there would be added infrastructure that would be needed, but it would have multiple areas that could be used for dog owners, small dogs, areas of lawn that could be rotated, and even a natural area.
I want to nail this down. Is this 1100 West or 1600 West?
Near 1100 West, off of Lakeview Parkway.
Because the map we got today, or this time, it was more towards 1600 West, but the map we got last time was more towards 1100, so.
This site's always been there. There was another site that was evaluated near 1600 West, but this is the one that had to.
So remind me, did
Higher
1100 West already have parking, right? Parking, is there, or is it just 1600? That's parking, right?
I'm not sure if there's one on 1600. There is one there near 1100.
Is there?
1600 has a trail.
Does it?
1100 has a detention.
Oh, that's correct.
1100 is a detention pond.
Yeah.
So we would just build another parking right at 1100. Where's the detention pond on this?
It's on the, I guess I would call it the west side of this property, near the west side.
So this is on the east side of the intersection?
This is on the south side of Lakeview Parkway.
So it is on the east side. Well, I realize it's on the south side of the parkway, but it's on the east side of the 1100 West intersection.
Yes.
There, yes, that's correct.
Okay. So with the regional dog park, you get the biggest bang for the dollar spent because it allows for the most amount of users. With that, there's obviously additional funds that would need to be allocated to fully develop this park. And then moving into once that would be those two options are our initial suggestions for how to begin the process of adding more dog parks to the city. The other options moving forward into phasing it into 2030. We've designated some other sites. We're calling it the Delta Dog Park concept, and Bicentennial would be in addition in the future to any expansion plans to Bicentennial Park. But just for sake of site selection, within the larger master plan document itself, we have defined a system for site selection based on criteria through the process. So if at any point one of these sites becomes unavailable or another site comes up, there are mechanisms for choosing another site to pursue. So these are just our recommendations and what are generically what neighborhood, community, regional parks may cost. And like bullet point number 3 says, they could be phased. Even the community dog parks do often within the master plan have multiple areas that could potentially be phased. in the sequencing, like I had previously said, if this is where we'd like to get direction on where the city would like to move forward, would either be the Rock Canyon, Raw, whatever the current budget would allow for, and then, or our recommendation would be to do the smaller ones and then begin the design process for the large one. And then just continue to secure capital for future projects.
And those, I'm sorry, Councilor
Do you have a question?
those two, the Rock Canyon and Raw or Exchange, those fit into that upper budget community.
They're the lowest.
The neighborhood, yeah, so we do have, yeah, in the larger master plan document, we did give a rough order of magnitude estimate for them. I believe the Rock Canyon one,
It's like 400,000.
it was like 400,000, and the Raw, I believe it was 100 and something.
100 something.
Yeah.
Okay, this is great. Thank you so much. I think I have some opinions on this. I think 3 parks would be great. I think 3 dog parks covers our city, and I can't imagine us needing more than 3. I think we should go ahead with the Rock Canyon one first. I think that the Raw is too close to neighbors and isn't an appropriate location. I think Rock Canyon's a great location. I think the Lakeshore Parkway? Lakeview Parkway is an awesome location, and it's huge. That's a huge park. And then eventually we're gonna redo the bicentennial with that new land. So I think those 3 cover the city fairly, and I think they cover our population size. And I think that I'm not in favor of the Raw or the one by the Gateway Park. It's too close to a person park.
I would agree with that. And then those funds from the feds, those just go towards whatever that expansion is, right? For the Delta Gateway, do you say that there's funding coming from the feds to finish that out? Just a design. Just design money. Yeah, that park is really loved, and the west side lacks full amenity parks. Like we've discussed this over and yeah, I think it would be great to just continue the people park.
I'm also all for appropriating the money for the Rock Canyon Park right away.
We have some funding available, so if they choose to do that one, we would have sufficient funds on our current capital improvement budget to accommodate that.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I rode my bike by all of the different ones because I wanted to look at them and see how they fit within the neighborhood. I actually think the Raw works really well as a location based on where it is next to the trail. I don't have a problem with the idea of either the Raw or the Delta Gateway one, because our existing dog park, Bicentennial Park, is also with a people park. And it's really nice to have the playground, like that multi-use facility. And I think with like the Delta Gateway Park or even the Raw one, you would have the regular park facility in proximity to the dog park facility. I see that as a really good thing. And especially the Raw, the way it's bounded by the streets and everything, I'm not concerned about it being more disturbing to the neighbors than the other parks that we have along the Provo River Trail. I don't see the real problem there. I mean, if you're near a park anyway, you're subject to noise from parties at pavilions and things like that. And if you could help me understand what you think the nuisance is, I would appreciate that, because I see it as like a really nicely bounded thing that people could get to. People walk along that trail with their dogs all the time, and they could slip off into the park and let the dog off for a little bit and then continue their walk. It seems like a good location.
Except for West Provo lacks people parks.
But
are you gonna appropriate money for a decent West Provo park?
We just opened the
Provo Delta Gateway Park. It's an amazing people park.
It is south of Center. Give me one good park, south of Center, Stream and Wilson. Something that is not a ball field. Something that has potties, something that has playground equipment. Something that has a pavilion. Give me one.
Do we not have those facilities that people can use at the Epic Sports Park?
That is not a people park, that's a sports park.
But there are playgrounds and walking trails and restrooms that the residents can go and use that. We've invested a lot in really good parks on the west side recently. And I think that this is another good investment for the west side.
I disagree, and so do the residents.
Councilor Hanley.
Yeah, I mean, I know we have different philosophies about dogs and leashes and off leashes, but I think for the survey showed that the majority of the city owns dogs, and the survey showed there was a real desire for this. So I would prefer personally to think of these as positives rather than negatives to have in the neighborhood. I mean, it's something I would think people would want to have in close proximity if they're a dog owner. And I get that that's not how some non-dog owners will see it, but I think we're building these to service those people. We all agreed that this would be a way to improve safety and so I think, I guess I just want to say it's an amenity, it's a service. It's a plus in a community to have one of these. And, you know, they're all going to be safe because that's what they're designed to do. So I just don't see proximity to residential areas being an issue because you still have dogs walking leashed in streets, hopefully, if they're following the rules, and that can happen. You know, they can go off leash and break the rules anywhere in the city. So it's not like people would be more likely to break the rules on the way to a dog park. That seems counterintuitive to me. So I like all, and I think Councilor McKay's point is well taken. I mean, we may find out we only need 3. I wouldn't want to make those decisions now because I think we're, what I read in the report gave us some incentive to try Raw and or Rock Canyon quickly to get some data, get some feedback, and then simultaneously get to work on the big project. So I'm in favor of all of the above. I mean, it seems like we've got the funding that we could do Raw and Rock Canyon right away and start the planning for the big one. And I think we'll meet a lot of demand in the city, and I think that'll make a lot of people happy. So I like it.
I will say that if we're moving forward in that, even though we don't have those facilities immediately, I think that could take off pressure because people will trust that it's coming, right? And that can change maybe some of the tone of the worries and the emails that we've been getting, knowing that we're actually moving forward with a solution instead of still spinning on it.
I look at the majority of the people wanted them over by Rock Canyon, right? They didn't want to. When I looked at those, it was Rock Canyon, it was Puddle Orchard, which isn't one of them. It was Stutz Park. The majority of them were along the East Bench. So I would think that Rock Canyon would be a priority, right? You didn't see very many that wanted at least what I looked at, the Delta Gateway. It was more down south towards that bigger park below the Lakeview Parkway.
Was the Delta Gateway area even anticipated when those surveys were being done? Was that offered as an option for people to put a dot on?
Yeah, it was considered. The challenge we had in some of those undeveloped properties, it was really hard for people to understand really where they were. I mean, we provided mapping and stuff like that, but it was considered, But I think the majority of the selection process, like Brent spoke about, when we put every site inside of that scoring criteria, that's really where these rose to the surface.
Go ahead, Frank.
Oh, go ahead.
I think like what I suggest, I suggested the biggest parks. So I think starting with 3 that are so large, and we can get going on the Rock Canyon right away, and then start on the design for the Lakeshore Parkway. And I think in time, then we can know if we need to add beyond that, but like even the Delta Gateway, it is packed, there's not enough parking.
Absolutely.
And how are we gonna add a dog park when there's already no parking and it's packed? And so I just don't think it is mixing water, people don't put their dogs in the water with the kids, I can just see it becoming a problem. But I think the other three, bicentennial is already a mix of park and people, we don't need to mix all parks with people, I think one is fine. I think that's just the most rational way to move ahead with it personally. I'd like to make a motion to start with that we do the Rock Canyon Park ASAP and work on a design for the Lake Shore.
Lakeview Parkway.
Lakeview Parkway, sorry, I was gonna say shore. I wish we had shores. Waves. Yeah.
I'd second that.
But wasn't yours a 3-part one?
Yeah, and then but bicentennial is not, I mean, that'll happen when we get the money.
Develop the.
Is every money that
park
we,
expansion.
all money that we still, even though it's cheaper, throwing it at raw, still takes away from other things at our parks and such.
And bicentennial does need to be redone.
That needs,
Oh,
I'd
so
rather.
the whole thing needs to be redone.
I'd rather focus on getting the money to bicentennial to be done sooner than later.
Bicentennial Park will be revisiting the master planning process next fiscal year.
That'll be
So
great.
That's on the,
That'll be great.
Price tag on raw is what again?
a little over 100,000.
I guess I would make a substitute motion to include raw. I just don't think it's the cost is gonna slow us down. I think it's a nice, small option that will give us some information. It seemed like a great location, so that would be my.
I've got a number of emails that neighbors don't want it, and I don't think it's appropriate to. I do not want to do raw.
Is there a second for the substitute motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. Other discussion? Can you go back to the,
Real quick, sorry, I think Councilor Fisher.
oh, yeah,
had a comment.
Commission's,
Yeah.
I jumped right into motion, so I'll wait.
Oh, okay.
So we're doing discussion now.
On the motion.
Well, now there's a substitute. I don't have anything to say about the substitute.
I just didn't want to skip over you.
That's good or bad?
All right. Sorry, go back. How far?
To the slide that shows the Rock Canyon Park and the
Raw, right here.
the exchange. I did get some feedback relative to the Rock Canyon Park and the limited amount of lawn there. That they considered it a very, trail focused 1.14 lawn acres. Is that enough space to run your dog? And will they then take their dogs to the bowl, I mean, you compare that to raw or exchange with half an acre of lawn. Let me understand your concept drawing for the Rock Canyon. I heard it referred to earlier as a natural park. What does
Sure.
that mean?
There's actually a really similar project that Blue helped design on Ferguson Canyon Trailhead, where we used a lot of it's native. So we used a lot of the existing vegetation. I mean, the dogs will run regardless if it's lawn or shrubs or rabbit brush or whatever is going. We're gonna throw a ball. So the concept is yes, there is a limited amount of manicured lawn space, but the vast majority of it is trail and natural landscape, which is why the cost is so much lower because we're just cutting a trail, using the natural landscape as much as possible, and limiting the manicured lawn space.
I think another thing to consider here is Rock Canyon Trailhead's heavily used by the pet owners. We do have a pet waste problem there. So we wanted to bring something close to there that kind of had that same look and feel. We know that they're using the trail system up there. It's a natural surface trail. It's less of this, throw your ball, let your dog retrieve it kind of thing, but just getting out and being active. So we felt if we incorporated something similar to that, that hopefully would reduce our impact and problems that we're seeing in the trailhead.
Okay. So I just wanted to point that out. It might be a different kind of dog park than I think people are used to seeing.
Yeah, it would be a little different than a normal manicured dog park.
How much grass will it have?
It's really just this small area right here. I believe that's only 0.14 acres, so I don't even believe we would use grass. We would probably use artificial turf.
Yeah, that's a question.
Remind me the cost, we talked about the cost for, Lakeview.
Make sure. Yeah.
Lakeview, yes. The regional.
Now she's got me going.
What was the cost for Centennial?
Bicentennial? We've got it right here.
So we had just over 2.4 million, but that's a rough number, and I don't believe that includes any additional parking.
Yeah, keep in mind, these are high level conceptual designs that we, yeah.
So I like the idea of, I think Rock Canyon makes sense. I think we should go ahead with that. I liked Bicentennial as a next step.
Sure.
Because there's already things there in place. I do like you've got another park for people, you've got a park for dogs. I actually like that. That's my 2 cents.
Like I mentioned before, I think that the Bicentennial property will probably develop further when we design the entire expansion area. So we'll include that with it. And I think that'll give us a much better idea of the overall construction cost at that point. So I think we'd have a really good answer, I guess, for that, or direction to move in the next fiscal year.
So do you want guidance on Bicentennial Park right now, or can we assume that that's just going to get rolled into that master plan design so we don't have to explicitly put it in our timeline for the dogs right now?
Yeah, I would assume that it would
Okay.
roll in with the general master plan.
And what would you do with the current dog park once the new dog park's open? Would you just use that as expansion for the grass?
Well, they're gonna figure it out in the big design.
Yeah,
Okay.
in the master plan, we talk about different options internally of, repurposing that or, reincorporate that into the general park and move all off-leash areas in the new area. Thought about leaving it as a smaller, limiting it to just small dog use and then putting in, artificial surfacing or something like that. So it's more user-friendly. So there's multiple different options, but I think that process will flesh itself out.
Turn it into pickleball.
Do we
There you go.
own that wooded area by it? That
To
one?
the west?
Yes,
No, we do not.
that'd be amazing to get because isn't it a fire hazard?
There are some there.
Other discussion or questions? So before I call for a vote, could I just clarify, is this vote a recommendation to Parks and Rec?
I think we're just looking for a recommendation from the team here so that as we proceed with our future budget planning, we can make sure that our priorities are aligned with ours.
And that would go back to the Parks and Rec Board and
Yes.
the administration and so on. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just as the last piece before you move on, our ultimate, just to wrap this up, our plan is in the next fiscal year, we're also going to be starting over a Parks and Recreation General Master Plan. We want to incorporate this in with that, so it would be included in the parks, the general park master plan, with that update. So that's where you would see this as a future planning document. It's incorporated there.
So what you're saying is right now, this is not officially adopted by the city council. This is just something that you're planning to put in with a bigger document to adopt later.
That's correct. Yeah, but we do want the direction on,
sure,
kind of our immediate need right now, and so we can start moving forward while waiting for these other processes to come about.
Okay, so we have a substitute motion by Councillor Hanley with a second by Councillor Whipple to move forward with the Raw Exchange Park and the Rock Canyon Park, and then begin planning for the Lakeview Parkway.
Right.
Let's just put 1100 West. That's
good. Councillor McKay?
No.
Councillor Christensen?
Yes.
Councillor Handley?
Yes.
Councillor Bogdan?
No.
Councillor Hoban?
Yes.
Councillor Garrett? Yes. So I don't. Councillor
Whipple.
Whipple.
Yes, of course.
So that vote is 4-3.
5-2.
5-2.
5-2. Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been going at this for 4.5 hours, so you're given a little leeway there.
Unfortunately, you got
Maybe
another evening.
I also just want to take the opportunity to say thank you. Tremendous work on this and delighted to see it put into the plan. Appreciate how responsive you guys are. These are amazing. Really grateful. Thank you.
Like sanitizing artificial turf, because I read about that and I'm like, what is this? So that's great.
Yeah.
That they would do that weekly.
If there's no objection, we'll now adjourn the municipal council by unanimous consent. And I don't believe there.
Recording stopped.